From a family of fishermen and farmers to the true immortal of water and virtue, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. Refining treasures is like refining people. Li Quanqing, the first place in this weapon haul assessment. The score is A+. With the announcement of the invigilator, the jade bell rang, and all the disciples' eyes converged in the same direction. Li Quanqing looked at the high-spirited and arrogant boy, and her mood was quite complicated. She also signed up for the assessment of the Earth level school, but unfortunately failed, and did not pass. To be precise, there were more than 60 boys and girls who studied and learned to read in the same room. Only Li Quanqing succeeded. He left his peers far behind. Junior brother, congratulations. Li Quanqing smiled. A heaven-level apprentice can already be called a quasi-weapon refiner, and he is only one step away from the finish line. But this one step has trapped many people for decades. Senior brother, does the promise you made back then still count? Li Quanqing smiled. After more than half a year of getting along, the two of them had already become familiar with each other. Li Quanqing nodded. Of course it counts. I've kept your kingly sword. The two agreed on a time. After Li Quanqing settled the chores in the fish pond, he followed his senior brother into the Dharma hall area. The family's weapon refiners all have a dedicated weapon refining hall deep in the weapon hall. The formation rumbled open, the light faded, and Li Quanqing carefully looked at the layout of the weapon refining room. The walls were made of huge black rocks, hard and immortal, blocking noise. The ground was paved with ice jade, and the cold air dissipated the remaining heat in the air. Various minerals and spiritual materials were piled up around the forging table, in a chaotic and orderly manner. In the corner, there was a ruined magic weapon, which had already fallen into a thick layer of dust. Li Quanqing glanced at Li Quanqing, who was wearing a bright and beautiful Taoist robe. He didn't expect that this senior brother had such a sloppy side. How is your fire control technique? Li Quanqing's face was also a little embarrassed, and he deliberately changed the subject. The spiritual route is not compatible, and I'm just average at learning this spell. Li Quanqing answered honestly. Alchemy and equipment refining always involve dealing with fire. For cultivators like us who don't have a strong fire spiritual route, if we want to reach the peak of equipment refining, we often need to rely on external objects. Li Quanqing pointed to a pile of warm and burning wood in the distance. For example, Yang attribute spiritual wood. The flames are gentle and peaceful when burning, and it is easier to control. Or tame a few fire monsters. Use the monster fire to refine equipment. The temperature is blazing, and it is more suitable than a cultivator with fire spiritual roots. The senior brother took out a spiritual beast bag, and 3 black fire crows with red claws and golden pupils flew out of it. Quack. The fire crow flapped its wings and looked at Li Quanqing curiously. Its feathers spread out, and wisps of high temperature flames burned on its wings. Which one do you want to choose? Li Quanqing looked at the spiritual wood, and then at the fire crow, and asked tentatively, brother, can I have them all? Li Quanqing was stunned for a moment, then laughed heartily. Of course, we just happen to be refining 2 magic tools, so it's just right. This time, refining tools was originally a teaching activity, so no trouble was spared. Li Quanqing brought the spiritual wood, which was called Gengjin wood. It was green like jade, with oval leaves that kept releasing heat. A small piece could make the whole room warm. The Li family planted thousands of acres in the spiritual medicine valley for the use of tool refiners. Swish. The 2 brothers raised flames in their palms and ignited the spiritual wood. The faint fragrance of plants and trees instantly lingered around their noses. A foot-long Gengjin wood was enough to burn for a day and a night. Only the magic power of immortal cultivators could ignite it, and it was difficult for mortals to hurt it. The light blue spiritual fire rose up, and a heat wave swept around, burning the furnace red. Li Quanqing took out a few pieces of ore and put them in the furnace. While performing the fire control technique to warm the furnace, he took out 2 artifacts to explain. To engrave spiritual patterns on a magic weapon, we must first determine the mana nodes, just like we must find the acupoints in our own body, before we can refine spiritual energy for cultivation. Junior brother, you determine the location of the mana nodes of this kingly sword. Li Quanqing took over the Gengjin Sword, and the mana slowly and gently penetrated into the sword body. The mana flows slowly inside the artifact, just like a stream flowing in a dark maze, where the road ahead cannot be seen. If the mana is stagnant, it means that there are too many impurities and the conductivity is too poor, so it needs to be avoided when engraving the artifact pattern. Sometimes the mana can rush through, but it is extremely difficult and obscure. When engraving the spiritual pattern here, the failure rate will be very high. Li Quanqing marked the mana nodes one by one, and he could connect the points from beginning to end into a line, which is a mana conduction route that runs through the entire artifact. The nodes of each artifact are unique, and the refiner needs to make adjustments according to the material and engrave the spiritual pattern. TSK! Exclamation mark. Under the guidance of his senior brother, Li Quanqing's fingertips glowed with golden light, and he used the Gengjin finger to start engraving the patterns, some deep and some shallow. This process is the same as drawing a talisman. It must be done in one go, and if there is a pause for a moment, all the previous work will be wasted. Buzz! Exclamation mark. After the 13 spiritual patterns were engraved, the sword rang loudly, and the spiritual energy automatically gathered, coating the embryo with a layer of precious light. Leave it to senior brother next. Li Quanqing put the sword embryo into the furnace, and the ores had long been smelted into the essence of gold and iron, like flowing magma. Quick! Senior brother kept making seals with his hands, and his magic power surged out, shooting out a series of forbidden spiritual lights. The essence of various materials covered the surface of the embryo, and actively drilled into the spiritual patterns, making a hissing sound. The whole kingly sword was shrinking, and various iron filings and impurities were precipitated, and then burned into nothingness by the flames. Li Quanqing watched intently. Each spiritual material was integrated into a different position, requiring extremely fine manipulation to finally merge into one. An hour later. Clang! Exclamation mark. The sword body vibrated, and a sharp aura rushed towards him. Li Quanqing formed the last seal, and a layer of fish scale green spiritual light bloomed, turning into silk threads, drilling into the depths of the sword body along the spiritual pattern. Dozens of mysterious symbols quietly burned and condensed, and finally disappeared, making it difficult for outsiders to spy. It's done. Li Quanqing pulled his magic power, and the kingly sword flew out of the furnace, and landed in front of his junior brother. The residual heat of the kingly sword had not yet faded, and it burned the air slightly. Li Quanqing looked at it carefully. The sword color was pure green and flawless, and the sword light was flowing. It had a layer of warm luster than before, like rippling water. The quality was barely enough for the upper and lower grade magic tools. Rest for 3 hours, and we will continue to refine the Gengjin shield. Li Quanqing looked at his junior brother who seemed to have realized something, leaving him time to think and summarize. 2 days later. Li Quanqing walked out of the refining room in a very happy mood. With my senior brother's endorsement, I can show my true level of weapon refining, and become a true weapon refiner. He left Qinggai Island, thinking while controlling the spirit boat, and carefully recalled the harvest this time. It can be said that he gained a lot. Those weapon refining knowledge, finally practiced and observed one by one, and had his own new insights. Those spiritual patterns engraved inside the magic weapon are like the bones and meridians in the human body. The magic power activates the weapon pattern and finally casts various spells. No wonder those Jinden Zenran and Yuanying Zenjin like to refine their own life magic weapons the most. Isn't this a systematic summary and verification of their own cultivation? Even if the cultivation method is the same, there may be a world of difference when refining the life magic weapon. Refining weapons is like practicing, and refining treasures is like refining people. Li Quanqing sighed slightly. Although there is a light bulb to open the game, the knowledge has really entered my brain, and there are always some thoughts of my own. Returning to the fish pond to open the formation, an iron bone crab with a body comparable to a wash basin was lying on the reef, to bask in the sun, a circle larger than the spirit crab next to it. Gurgle! The big crab spit out water foam from its mouth, its eyeballs rolled, and it glanced at Li Quanqing lazily. This is the Iron Bone Crab King who has conquered all his brothers and sisters, and the only detritus crab in the crab group that has not yet entered maturity. It is also the one with the most stubborn temper. Splash. The Ironbone Crab King stretched out its big claws and stirred the water a few times. Amid the splashes, it suddenly caught a big, lively black carp. What does this mean? Invite me to eat fish, to repay the kindness of raising me? Li Quanqing was looking at the big black carp with a dazed look and was a little confused. Then he heard a click and the crab claws fell, directly cutting the body of the black carp in half. Blood splattered and the body was separated. Li Quanqing's blood pressure rose directly. Detritus crab, you dare to kill my fish? Chapter 27, Transformation. You bastard crab, you dare to kill my fish? Li Quanqing looked at the half-cut green carp jumping around on the ground with a very unfriendly look. For no reason, the pet he raised suddenly killed another pet. This is a very dangerous signal. The blood of monsters is naturally flowing with arrogance. Clang. The green carp sword made a clear sound, turned into a stream of light and flew out, hanging above the head of the big crab, and the golden sword energy was fluctuating. If the Ironbone Crab King showed any signs of wildness and preparing to attack him, execute him on the spot. Gurgled the Ironbone Crab King tilted his head, seemingly unaware of the murderous intentions of the cafeteria chef in front of him. It even raised its big claws and smashed them on the flying sword, making a clanging sound of iron hammering, and it was having a lot of fun. This guy doesn't look like his monster nature is awakening. Li Quanqing was a little hesitant. Suddenly, several Ironbone crabs came forward, and with a snap of their claws, they cut the big green carp into 8 pieces. They didn't share the food, but picked out dozens of thin transparent things like noodles from the fish carcass. This is when the dazzling sunlight shone on these long transparent lines, they suddenly twisted violently, like earthworms struggling to death in a frying pan. The sharp and piercing chirping sound reached his ears, and Li Quanqing finally knew what it was. Parasites. Chirp. The high-pitched sound waves of the insects, when they were dying, echoed in the fish pond, as if turning on some kind of signal, and the entire water surface instantly boiled. Countless large black carps jumped out of the water, ferocious, and their eyes were red. They attacked everything they could see in front of them, even their own kind, and their bodies seemed to have endless strength. It was like 1,000 huskies destroying the house. Damn it. Li Quanqing's face turned green. The Ironbone crabs were also frightened by the scene, raised their crab legs and retreated, piled on the top of the reef, looking at him weakly and helplessly. The claws of the crabs snapped, as if they were cheering for their masters. Li Quanqing didn't dare to jump into the water to stop them. He could only manipulate the formation that protected the fish pond to divide the fish school into dozens of different areas. But! Exclamation mark. Lotus flowers bloomed all around, drawing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and turned into a flashing array pattern that intertwined and spread over every inch of the 20 mu of water. One square cover after another formed, covering an area of about mu, separating the big black fish and protecting the Ironbone crabs and the bright moon shells. Bang, bang. The fish school did not stop because of this. One by one, the big black fish jumped up and hit the formation cover. Their scales were broken, blood flowed from their skin, and pieces of transparent parasites emerged from their flesh and blood, twisting their bodies wildly. This is too crazy. Li Quanqing was stunned. The whole formation was a little unstable due to the collision, and the spiritual light flickered and flickered. Fortunately, he kept pouring his own magic power into the lotus array, and took out the spirit stone to inlay, and finally stabilized the situation. Moo. 20 green jade carps escaped from the fish school with difficulty, covered with wounds and roaring grievance. Even in the water around their bodies, there were dense parasites twisting, trying to get into the skin and flesh. What a strong evil bug. Li Quanqing's pupils shrank slightly. You know, the green jade carps are the upper tribe of the big black carp. On weekdays, they can be said to be showing off their power, and no big black carp dares to provoke them. Now that the evil bugs are parasitic, they can actually make the big black carp overcome its instincts and blood suppression, which is really amazing. He hurriedly performed the water control technique to remove all the bugs, and then cleared a clean and safe area of water to place the spirit beasts in it. I don't know what happened to the group of stone loaches. Li Quanqing sighed, and he couldn't care too much at this time. I want to turn into a dragon. Jade carp. Damn bugs. They can make me bleed and get injured. From today on, I will stop playing and having fun, and practice during the day. I will definitely turn into a dragon. Maturity. 97%. Iron bones. Iron bones crab. Who is afraid? I'm not. Just a bug. If you dare, I will fight 10 of them. Maturity. 99%. Cool shells. Moonlight shell. Hey, this bug is so dirty. Luckily it can store the moonlight. Otherwise it would have been swallowed long ago. Maturity. 38%. He stroked the carp and crab shells one by one, and finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that no spirit beasts were parasitized. He casually fished out a large black fish that was parasitized. The scales became more colorful and thicker, and it obviously had some of the aura of the jade carp. Loss of reason. Big blue carp. Swallow, 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 swallow. Swallow a mouthful of flesh and blood into the stomach, shed all mortal life, and transform into a demon fairy. Evolution. 69%. Parasitic state. Li Quanqing was a little speechless, and directly transcended the other party with a sword. Parasites drilled out of the fish's belly. The tops were split like petals, with sharp teeth, and no other facial features except the mouth. Clang. The young man opened his 5 fingers and shot out a series of Gengjin sword beams that looked like fine needles, mincing these insects into meat. He deliberately left one, and used the golden finger, to find out the species names of these parasites. Confused demon insect, parasitism, devouring, reproduction. The meaning of all life is to become a demon. What a weird name. It seems to be made up by the demon race. Li Quanqing frowned, and for some reason, he inexplicably thought of the 3 demons who attacked and killed that night. Since returning from Baoqingfang market that day, the big blue carps are indeed not quite right, and they become irritable from time to time. I think since then, or even earlier, there have been demon insects that have sneaked into the waters of the fish pond. Unfortunately, he didn't take it seriously, and didn't touch the big black carps one by one, and was careless. This is a lesson. The formation of the fish pond is not omnipotent. There are also dirty things that can't be stopped. Li Quanqing looked at the 2,000 big black carps that were almost wiped out, and felt helpless. Report to the family. I can't handle this situation. The young man spread his hands, and chose to give up. He is not a lone cultivator, not to mention that the Li family has stood for thousands of years, and has experienced wind and rain. Maybe they have encountered this thing. Li Quanqing took out the weapon hall token. Thanks to his talent for refining weapons, he was qualified to contact the third elder alone. Activating the sound transmission formation, he briefly told the other side the whole process of discovering the parasite. Li Quanqing quickly responded, water-like parasites. You also found this scourge in the fish pond of District C. Li Quanqing was very keenly aware of the word also and suddenly realized it. If the formation of his own fish pond cannot defend, then the same must be true for others. The whole family is probably in trouble. From this point of view, the possibility of man-made is even greater. I know, someone will go over to deal with it soon. You wait first. Don't tell anyone about this. With a snap, the sound transmission formation was unilaterally cut off. Li Quanqing sat on the reef, rubbing the fish heads and crab shells with his hands, waiting boredly. About half an incense stick of time, a girl in a blue dress came in a spirit boat. Li Quanqing waved his snow-like arms at him, his eyebrows smiling, gentle as water. Junior brother, the hall master said that there is a problem with your fish pond. Do you need my help? Li Quanqing looked the girl up and down, thought for a moment, and spoke carefully. Senior sister, it's not that I don't believe you. Are you sure the elder is calling you, and not other people from the tribe? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Pest Control. The boy's words were full of sincerity. For a moment, the pond was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Li Quanqing's smile froze on her face. Junior brother, although you are handsome, you don't need to talk. Li Quanqing felt a little wronged. Senior sister, what you said hurts my heart. I have always regarded you as a respected brother like senior brother Quanlin. Li Quanqiu was too lazy to pay attention to him. Open the formation. Is there a demon insect causing trouble, causing the big black carp to be manic and increase its desire to attack? Li Quanqing nodded and hesitated. Senior sister, those insects are difficult to deal with. Don't worry, I'm sure. The girl stood at the bow of the boat, her robe fluttering in the sea breeze, her eyebrows flying, and her heroic appearance. As soon as she got into the formation, with a splash, a parasitic big black carp jumped out of the water and hit her like a cannonball. Li Quanqiu remained calm and waved her white hand. Wherever the magic power in her palm passed, the temperature dropped sharply, and a layer of ice formed in the sea water in the blink of an eye. Crack, crack. The cold air surged, the ice spread, the big black fish struggled a few times, and was directly frozen in the thick hard cold. Ice-based skills. Li Quanqing looked surprised. The girl actually changed the cloud and water skills she originally practiced. Wind, thunder, and ice are the three most famous spiritual roots. There are very few skills that match them. I don't know where the other party got it from. Water and fire spiritual roots are naturally in conflict, and it is difficult to practice. My father spent a lot of effort, and finally found a binking skill. He hopes that I can use the power of ice to completely suppress the fire spiritual root in my body. It is indeed much easier to practice than before. The biting coldness hit Li Quanqing in the face, which made him a little excited. For low-level cultivators, the attack power of water-based spells is indeed much weaker than that of ice-based spells. Li Quanqiu looked playful. Junior brother, do you want to learn it too? Although this skill does not have a foundation building chapter, it is powerful and enough for us. Li Quanqing heard this and gave up instantly. GG. The big black carp was trapped in the ice and could not move. A trace of cold air invaded, and soon there were sharp and painful explosions of insects. The green scales of the fish bulged, and demon insects emerged one after another, as slender as hooks, which made people's scalps numb. They opened their ferocious mouthparts, which were covered with serrations, and began to gnaw on the ice, making the rustling sound of silkworms eating mulberry leaves. This kind of demon insects are extremely afraid of the cold, so we can use this to force them to drill out of the big black carp's body and reduce the losses of fishermen and farmers. Li Quanqing thought of the moonlight condensed by the bright moon shell, which is also a thing of the moon and has a certain restraining effect. The girl stared at it without blinking and suddenly sighed. What a pity. As dozens of demon insects completely drilled out, the whole big black carp snapped and its body suddenly broke into pieces. The boiling demon blood dyed the ice red, and the fat and powerful big fish was now as fragile as paper. The tails of those insects were completely integrated into the spine of the black fish, turning into green skeletons with skin and flesh, dragging behind the body. Only a huge fish head was left, staring with eyes and mouth wide open, in vain and helpless. Li Quanqing saw this numbing scene, and suddenly felt a pain in his old waist. This fish is hopeless. Li Quanqiu concluded and pressed down gently with his bare hands. Crack. The ice layer collapsed completely, and the cold air broke out completely, freezing the insects and the big black fish into ice chips. They stepped on the lotus platform, protected their bodies with formations, and quickly got busy in the fish pond. Some big black fish had just been parasitized for a short time, and their skeletons had not yet been assimilated by the monster insects. Only a little cold air could drive the monster insects out of the fish's stomach. When the insects got out of the ice, Li Quanqing immediately used the Gengjin Sword energy to chop them into meat paste, cutting off all their life. Only then would Li Quanqiu thaw the ice and release the severely frozen big black carp, at least to save their lives. With the golden finger, any big black carp that had not completely driven out the bugs would be caught and executed on the spot. After a day, they had killed a total of 500 big black carps, but only 70 or 80 were saved. What a heavy loss. Li Quanqing crushed a few green fish scales, which were as brittle as dead wood, and his heart was bleeding. The demon insects parasitize the spine and bones, and when they are on the verge of death, they will swallow all the essence in the host body in one gulp, leaving nothing behind. Those dead big black carps really died in vain. The blood, flesh, essence, scales, tendons, and bones all became the worms. Li Quanqing felt sorry for the spiritual sand and spiritual stones, but he felt even more sorry for the light ball rewards that he had not had time to harvest. Unexpectedly, the stone loaches had a layer of skin that was harder than rock because they had no fish scales. They actually managed to escape. The loss is indeed not small, but if we talk about the tragedy, you are not the worst. Li Quanqing sat cross-legged on the other side of the reef, holding the spirit stone in his hand, bathing in the moonlight and meditating, restoring the mana consumed in large quantities during the day. The insect plague in the fish pond in Area B is terrible. There are even green jade carps that are parasitic and hollow out their entire bodies, and demon butterflies in the key refining realm fly out of them. This scene is really terrible. Demon butterflies are flying across the sky, covering the sky and the sun, and giving birth to new life on the corpses of spirit fish. The big blue fish's dream of becoming a demon fairy has not even begun, but its stomach has been hollowed out, and it is just a wedding dress. Hearing that the Li family's foundation building was alarmed, they asked the family leaders to temporarily block the news and try to find out the mastermind behind the scenes. But Li Quanqing felt that the probability was not high. Those elders didn't even know the name and origin of this insect. During this period, all the family monks who walked the ice road were secretly summoned, but the number was too small. Fortunately, with the assistance of a large number of ice attribute talismans, the insect plague in the fish ponds in Area B has not been further expanded. Li Quanqing lay on the stone, teasing the ironbone crab, tapping the water with her toes, with a rare look of fatigue between her beautiful eyebrows. However, since you have also found demon insects here, I'm afraid that the remaining fish ponds will not be spared. The girl's guess was not wrong. Only 2 days passed. The fish ponds in Area B, which were hundreds of miles long and wide, began to suffer from insect plagues one after another. The whole family was in an uproar and looked sad. Time was tight and the task was heavy. After solving Li Quanqing's problem, Li Quanqing did not have time to rest. Under the arrangement of the family, he continued to go to other areas to complete the great task of killing insects. Looking at the empty fish ponds, those big black carps swimming leisurely in the water in groups of 3 or 2, Li Quanqing was a little uncomfortable for a while. Slurp, slurp. The discordant voice broke the sad atmosphere at the right time. The Ironbone Crab King held a demon transforming insect with his pincers and ate it with gusto and joy. He swallowed the whole thing like a spicy strip, and it was so delicious that he kept knocking on the stone surface with his crab legs, making a tapping sound. The remaining ironbone crabs were also fighting for it. Some of them sucked on the same strip, and the body of the demon transforming insect broke with a pop, and juice flowed. Is it really that delicious? Li Quanqing was actually a little curious. These were all corpses of insects that had been frozen to death. He suddenly had an idea to keep some and try to feed them to the ironbone crabs. Unexpectedly, the effect was surprisingly good. Harvest an ironbone crab in the early stage of key refining and reward a high quality Vajra talisman. After eating a few spicy strips, the Ironbone Crab King finally entered the mature stage. Chapter 29 Snowstorm. Vajra Talisman, a first-class talisman that can summon a Vajra warrior puppet with combat power comparable to that of a 7th level key refining cultivator and lasts for 3 hours. Such a powerful talisman? It's worth it that I've tolerated you, such a fool, for so long. Li Quanqing smiled with his mouth wide open. His previous investment and expectations finally paid off. He kept the Vajra talisman close to his body. He had a 7th level key refining puppet by his side, and his body was strong and fearless of life and death. It was really so safe. The insect plague was not concealed in the end. It was said that the spiritual stones lost by the Li family were enough to buy half a foundation building bill. Even other foundation building families heard the news and frantically explored their own sea areas to see if there were any such strange monsters. For a time, the nearby sea area was in a state of panic. But this had nothing to do with a certain ordinary family fisherman. Li Quanqing made the monster insects into bait, and the green jade carps ate them more happily than each other. In a sense, it was also a revenge. The shredded insect meat was piled in the pond mud. It was rich in nutrients. Next year will definitely be a bumper year. It's snowing. A white snowflakes weighed and fell on the nose, then turned into water drops and fell into the ripples of the fish pond. Only a little bit of ice and coolness was left. Li Quanqing raised his head and saw the fine snowflakes falling from the sky and sweeping across the sky. The 4 seasons in the East China Sea are like spring. For the monks living on the island, snow is indeed a very rare thing. The snow is getting bigger and bigger, from sesame seeds to goose feathers, as if it is endless, and soon it covers the water surface. The waves are surging, and only flawless white snow and broken ice can be seen, completely covering the boundless blue ocean. Moo. Moo. The green jade carp swam up curiously and used their heads to push the floating ice and snow. They are less than 1 year old and can only be regarded as children. They never thought that the sky above their heads would also turn white. Li Quanqing took a few glances and saw that the airflow converged on the forehead of a green jade carp and soon formed a soft colored light ball. Calculating the time, this batch of green jade carp should indeed be mature collectively. Harvest a green jade carp in the early stage of key refining and reward a green carp sword refining experience. Li Quanqing rubbed the carp's head with joy. He didn't expect such a generous reward right at the beginning. It was really a big deal. I like it. The light ball was poured into his head, and all kinds of refining knowledge rushed into his mind. Although the name of the green carp sword is ordinary, it is a real mid-grade flying sword magic weapon. After hundreds of years of innovation, the Li family has been able to achieve mass production and earn a lot of spirit stones every year. Reviewing the past to learn new things, the old knowledge becomes newer and newer. After Li Quanqing digested the knowledge, he felt as if he was experiencing the life of another refiner. He completely stood in the field of refiners and even took a big step forward. There is no obstacle on the road to becoming a mid-grade refiner. Tomorrow I will go to the weapon hall, refine a green carp sword, and become a true weapon refiner. Li Quanqing was in great joy. Harvest a green jade carp in the early stage of key refining, and a spiritual energy ball as a reward. The second green jade carp matured, which was what the boy was looking forward to the most. The rolling spiritual energy spread into his limbs and bones. The magic power was refined, and the danshan became full and plump at a speed visible to the naked eye. When the water is full, it will overflow. Only 2 or 3 more spiritual energy balls are needed to break through smoothly. Other cultivators often need to bathe in tranquility, hold their spirits and keep oneness, or even use the power of elixirs to attack brazenly. It can be said that they are very cautious, for fear of making the slightest mistake. But Li Quanqing only needs to lie down and raise fish. This cultivation level, even if you don't practice every day, it will increase faster than others. There is no way. The gap between people is so big. In the snow water, the green jade carps had a lot of fun, not afraid of the cold at all. They swung their tails, smashing the floating ice on the water surface one after another, and then spit out water arrows from their mouths, making a sound of pop pop. Whoever's water arrows flew higher and hid more ice cubes would be the final winner. These guys are getting smarter and smarter, and the clear stupidity in the fish's eyes has disappeared. Li Quanqing couldn't help but smile as he watched the fish playing in the water. Moo. The fish's song was melodious and dull. The largest jade carp swam over and stretched its big head to rub against him. Its fish eyes were cute and its scales on its back were golden and dazzling. The slippery touch came. The seawater was cold, but the palm of his hand was warm, and the warm current went straight into his chest. I want to turn into a dragon, jade carp. I hate this heavy snow. It blocks the sun and the moon and delays my practice. But I feel at ease with my master by my side. Maturity. 99%. This fool. I have raised it for so long, and it actually has feelings for it. Li Quanqing laughed, rubbed the big fish's head, and fed it a few more baits. Thousands of miles of ice, thousands of miles of snow. The snow was unexpectedly heavy, covering several nearby sea areas, which could be called a disaster, with a hint of unusual breath. Li Quanqing stepped on the thick ice. The cold wind blowing in his face was like a knife, and the snow under his feet made a creaking sound. It was hard to imagine that he was actually walking on the sea at this time, with white snow covering the end of the world. Lotus arrays bloomed one after another, standing in the wind and snow, shining with brilliance, and the array patterns intertwined, blocking the wind and snow outside the Jade Island. Li Quanqing was shocked. This was a quasi third level water curtain lotus formation, but it was forced to open to protect the tribe. Was this blizzard a natural disaster or a man-made disaster? Li Quanqing passed through the formation and boarded the Qingyu Island. The lush spring scenery was in full bloom, forming a sharp contrast with the grey and white scene outside. There was also snow in many places on the island, which showed that it had also been ravaged. Refining Hall. Due to the snowstorm, there were too few disciples in the school, and there were only a few clinking sounds of iron forging. As expected of senior brother Quanqing, you are still so diligent in such bad weather. Several guys looked at him with admiration. They were all middle-aged men in their 30s and 40s, working hard here. Hello everyone. Since we are destined to gather here, why not ask everyone to be a witness? Li Quanqing smiled and arched his hands. He came to the refining table he often used and placed the various spiritual materials he had prepared one by one. The Qingyang wood that ignited the fire, the sea heart copper mother as the main material, the pile of bluefish scales, and various spiritual minerals and fairy golds made people dazzled. This seems to be the material for refining magic tools. A disciple who had been held back for more than 30 years saw the clues, and his eyes full of fine lines widened in disbelief, with a bitter taste in his mouth. That's right, I have notified several elders of the weapon hall, and will complete the family's weapon refiner assessment under their witness. Li Quanqing's eyes were bright, and he could see senior brother Li Quanlin and the elders rushing here quickly in the distance. The boy's originally agitated mood calmed down, and although his words were light, they exploded here like thunder. Today, I will succeed. Chapter 30, the refining of the weapon is completed. Everything that happened in the weapon refining hall quickly swept among hundreds of disciples like a hurricane. They called their friends, layer by layer, and surrounded the entire weapon refining hall. They looked at the young man in green robes with flashing eyes, and their expressions were different. As the most dazzling genius disciple in the past year, Li Quanqing has long been famous in the weapon hall. Everyone firmly believes that he will become a weapon refiner. The only difference is the specific length of time. 3 years is success, 10 years is success, and 30 years is also success. Li Quanqing's actions at this time undoubtedly surprised them again. Too fast. The speed is so fast that there is not even time for precipitation. Can he really do it? Some people sneered and questioned, some silently blessed, some were ready to witness history, and some wanted to take their place. Li Quanqing treated them all as cabbages. He was too lazy to even look at them. Elders, can I start? Li Quanqing saluted without being humble or arrogant. 7 old men stood at the front, both men and women, and the worst was a first-class weapon refiner. According to the rules of the weapon hall, only 3 elders are required to be present for the family weapon refiner assessment. Li Quanqing did indeed only call 3 people. Unexpectedly, all the elders of the weapon hall came in the end. This kind of scene can be said to be full of pressure. Those with a bad mentality will explode in a minute. Let's start. The elders looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Li Quanqing raised the spiritual fire and began to forge the sword embryo. His expression was focused, like a deep pool without waves. His heart was like still water, detached from the world. Every movement and every detail achieved the kind of beauty like flowing clouds and water. It seemed as if it had been tempered thousands of times, and it was pleasing to the eye. Even the elders couldn't help but nod their heads, and couldn't find any faults. The originally noisy and lively hall fell into a strange silence. Those present were all experts, real disciples of the weapon hall. Their level could be distinguished from the real ones at a glance. Amazing, amazing. Li Quanlin stood on the beam above the hall and looked out, unable to stop exclaiming, slapping his thigh angrily. Some of this junior brother's weapon making techniques even made him feel like he was observing a mid-level weapon making master. Even the hall master, who is known as the family's #1 weapon making master, probably doesn't have such an achievement at this age, right? As soon as Li Quanlin finished speaking, he suddenly felt a chill on his neck, his hair stood up, and he had a bad feeling. Little Lin, I seem to hear someone saying bad things about me behind my back. Silently, Hall Master Li Quanli appeared behind Li Quanlin. It was hard to imagine that with the third elder's towering figure, he could land so silently. Li Quanlin's body froze, his expression solidified in an instant, and he trembled with fear. Next time you say bad things about someone, remember to stay away from me. Li Quanqing grabbed Li Quanqing by the collar and threw him out from the beam. Also, I was 15 years old when I refined my first magic weapon, remember? I remember. Li Quanqing's screams became farther and farther away until they could no longer be heard. Not bad, not bad. My strength has increased again. Li Quanqing waved to the guys watching the excitement below. His arms muscles bulged high, making his loose Taoist robes bulge. The group of disciples were immediately scared like quails, pretending that they didn't see anything. Li Quanqing didn't say all the words just now. Before he became a weapon refiner at the age of 15, he had already studied with the weapon refiner for a year and a half. Compared with Li Quanqing, his conditions were much better. But everyone only remembers that when he became a weapon refiner, he was 2 years younger than the 17-year-old Li Quanqing. That's enough. Li Quanqing brought up the old matter again in order to protect this genius in weapon refining who has not yet grown up. Anyway, with his strength of ki refining great perfection, he has nothing to fear. It is definitely not that he wants to show off. Clang. The sound of the sword suddenly rose, as clear as a dragon. Li Quanqing successfully refined a kingly sword with spiritual light. Although the grade is only low grade, it is also a real magic weapon for cultivating immortals. The whole hall was in an uproar. Not bad. This boy's like me and has the style of the old man in the past. The third elder stroked his beard, feeling proud. The uncut jade he discovered with his own hands in the past actually shined brightly. As the weapon hall grows stronger, his status will naturally rise, and he will eventually suppress all the old guys and take over the power of the family alone. He never coveted power and did all this just for the common ambition of all key refining cultivators. Alas, the 60-year deadline. Build a foundation. Build a foundation. The old man's body shook and disappeared quietly, leaving only a barely detectable sigh on the spot. Greetings, senior brother Quanqing. Li Quanqing stood at the highest point of the hall. Below him, there was a roar of people. When he became a formal weapon refiner, his seniority was automatically raised, and all the disciples of the weapon hall had to salute him when they saw him. It doesn't matter if he is old, it only matters if he is a master. Congratulations, senior brother. Li Quanqing also changed his words, with a gloomy look in his eyes and a complex expression. You're welcome, junior sister. Li Quanqing smiled happily, feeling quite proud. Finally, he didn't have to call everyone senior brother or senior sister. Even his cousin Li Quanqing saluted him with a gloomy face and never dared to be presumptuous again. According to the rules of the weapon hall, the first magic weapon of all weapon refiners must be sold in public to inform the whole family. At first, Li Quanqing thought this rule was too ostentatious, but now he felt wonderful as the protagonist surrounded by the crowd. If you don't return home in glory, it's like walking in the dark. You lantern, the family market. The emerald green water gurgled, and the scenery was quiet and deep, like a huge jadeite with no end in sight. 80 spirit stones. This kingly sword belongs to me. As soon as Li Quanqing and the people from the weapon hall stepped into the market, they saw several wealthy merchants blocking the door and shouting, arguing with each other. Poor dog, this is the future master Quanqing. I will pay 200 spirit stones to buy your work and make friends with my cousin. The middle-aged man with a mustache sneered, waved his paper fan lightly, and reported an astonishing number, which far exceeded the value of the lower grade magic weapon. The merchants were the most well-informed and had prepared early to curry favor with the first genius of the weapon refining hall. Li Quanqing began to speak politely. Thanks to the kindness of all the clansmen, today I, Li Quanqing, have refined the first piece. More and more clansmen came out of the shops, poked their heads out, gathered together to eat melon seeds and watch the excitement. For the first time, the name Li Quanqing really resounded within the family. The bidding sounds came one after another, and it was as lively as coming to a vegetable market. Li Quanqing looked around, and was just trying to find a guy he liked to sell to the other party when a familiar person suddenly bumped into his field of vision. He was a cold-faced monk in black clothes, with a wine gourd hanging around his waist. His breath was sharp and cold, and he exuded an indissoluble smell of blood. This guy was obviously an extremely powerful demon hunter. Everyone stayed away from him and avoided him. Li Quanqing recognized the other party. He had met him once before and picked up dragon scale grass seeds from the stall of this demon hunter monk. It can be considered a fate. Brother, do you want a freshly made magic flying sword? He held the sword blade upside down, handed the flying sword over, and poked the other party with the hilt of the sword. Chapter 31. 5th level of key refining. What? Sell it to me? The guard dog of Changqing Palace knows how poor I am. The black-robed monk was stunned and looked at Li Quanqing carefully. His pupils suddenly trembled and he recognized him. It's you. Do you want it, brother? Li Quanqing asked again. This demon hunter looked to be in his 20s and he had already reached the 5th level of key refining. He was a rare talent. The man touched the shrunken storage bag and said hesitantly, 100 spirit stones? Deal. Li Quanqing took the spirit stone bag without even looking at it and directly stuffed the kingly sword to the other party. Only the merchants were left and they looked at each other, all dumbfounded. Junior brother, this move is smart. Li Quanlin chuckled next to him and agreed with this decision. Don't look at these merchants who offer high prices. Who knows what kind of monsters and demons are behind them. To be able to open a shop in the family market, at least you are related to a powerful elder. The weapon refiners were selling their wares on the street, seemingly showing off, but in fact they were secretly building bridges and connections, establishing cause and effect, and finding themselves a sponsor and a backer. After all, if a weapon refiner wants to break through, the cost will only increase, and it is not enough to rely on himself. In a sense, it can be regarded as the result of a compromise between the weapon refinery hall and the family elders, building a community of interests and making the pie bigger and stronger. Li Quanlin had someone to guide him at the beginning, and he also did not choose to trade with merchants and get involved in these entanglements. In addition to his outstanding talent, he finally succeeded in holding on to the third elder's thigh and truly became the core of the weapon hall. Li Quanqing was very confused when he heard it, with clear and innocent eyes. Brother, what are you talking about? Unlike what Li Quanlin imagined, he really didn't understand these twists and turns, and simply saw that this demon hunter had a destiny. What a loss. Beside him, the black-clothed monk held the kingly sword and wanted to slap himself in the face with heartache. With so many people watching just now, he got excited and took out all his family's assets just to buy a low-grade magic weapon. Is it too late to return the money now? Unexpectedly, a storage bag was really handed to him right under his nose. The transaction just now was just a show. Don't take it seriously, brother. To be honest, Li Quanqing was indeed a little reluctant to part with it. After all, it was the first magic weapon in his life. It was very memorable. A man's words are as good as his words. How can he go back on his word? Take it away, don't mess up my heart. The demon hunter said righteously, but his eyes couldn't help but glance at the storage bag. It was like a wild cat stealing fish, visible but untouchable. Li Quanqing laughed. The man in front of him was a wonderful person. I'm Li Quanqing. I haven't asked you yet, what is your name, brother? The man immediately became serious, clasped his fists and saluted, with a bit of the heroic spirit of man of the rivers and lakes. Li Quanqing, the song of drinking and singing. The cold wind whistled, rolling up thousands of piles of snow. Li Quanqing sat on the lotus platform in his own fish pond. Even with the formation guarding him, and the warming talismans attached to his body, he was still freezing. He took out a wine gourd, and poured a mouthful of it into his mouth. The wine was the color of jasper, and tasted sour and sweet. After drinking it, he finally dispelled the coldness in his bones. This wine was given to him by Li Quanqing. They hit it off at first sight that day. Even his senior brother Li Quanlin liked this guy very much. The three of them ordered a table of spiritual meals in the market. As a man, fine wine is indispensable. So the rumor that Li Quanqing, the new weapon refiner of the family, did not touch a drop of strong liquor, spread on the island. This gourd of green plum wine was given to him by Li Quanqing before he left. It is said that a group of monkey demons made spiritual wine with plums, mulberries, peach meat, etc. Li Quanqing was addicted to alcohol and deliberately delayed until the monkey demons brewed the wine, before sending them one by one to the paradise early. Unexpectedly, this monkey wine didn't have the spicy taste of ordinary wine at all. It tasted mellow and sweet, more like juice. He was so angry that he almost took the monkeys to soak in wine to vent his anger. Li Quanqing took another sip and smacked his lips. He liked to drink sweet things. 1, 2, 3.17. The boy wiped off the floating snow and stared at it through the thick ice. In the depths of the fish pond, under the ice cover, 20 green jade carps were quietly suspended there, as if they were asleep. 17 balls of light were suspended on the fish heads, with a soft and brilliant luster. Because the temperature was too low, all the spirit fish were reducing consumption and rarely moved. Even the bright moon shells closed their shells tightly. Only the golden patterned green jade carp that was determined to turn into a dragon has not matured. Li Quanqing exhaled a breath of wine, and his breath turned into ice. He decided not to wait any longer. Because the ice layer was too thick, 5 or 6 meters deep, he was too lazy to break it again and again, preparing to harvest the balls of light collectively. That's why he waited until now. Gengjin Sword technique. The kingly sword clanged, turned into a stream of light, and slashed on the ice cap. The golden sword energy was surging, and chopped the ice chips. After a full stick of incense, a plate-sized ice hole was opened up, and the cold seawater gushed out. The fish were frightened, and fled in all directions. The iron bone crab quietly buried itself in the mud at the bottom of the pond, only sticking out 2 eyes. Come here. Li Quanqing used the water control technique to condense the water into a line and fish the king-eye carps to the surface of the water. The bottom of the water was warm, but not as cold as on the ice. Everyone was frozen and drowsy. Li Quanqing rubbed his hands and finally came to the much anticipated harvest moment. Harvest a king-eye carp in the early stage of key refining, and reward a medium-grade magic weapon kingly sword. The white light dissipated, and a 3-foot-long flying sword was in front of him, with a blue haze blooming, and full of spiritual light. Li Quanqing sighed. The quality of this kingly sword was better than the one he had refined. It was a mid-grade magical weapon. It just so happens that after I become a weapon refiner, my family will reward me with a shop in Baoking Market, with generous benefits. When the time comes, I will sell these magical weapons and exchange them all for spiritual stones. Li Quanqing put away the kingly sword with satisfaction, and continued to touch the next one. Harvest a king-eye carp in the early stage of key refining, and reward 10 mid-grade talismans, ice arrow talismans. Li Quanqing took a few glances, and recognized that this was the fickle female big blue carp. When feeding, she liked to spit at him the most. No wonder there was a strange talisman like ice arrow talisman. Harvest a king-eye carp in the early stage of key refining, and reward a spiritual energy ball. Right square bracket asterisk 3. Finally, the thing the boy had been looking forward to the most appeared. A large ball of spiritual energy drilled into the meridians and was refined. The misty airflow drilled out of the pores and turned into a misty white mist that wrapped around his body. Li Quanqing felt that he was only one step away from a breakthrough. A jade carp of the early stage of key refining was harvested, and a spiritual energy ball was rewarded. Boom. The spiritual energy poured into his head, shaking his head and making his head buzz. From his 7 orifices, the essence of heaven and earth like a little snake drilled out, and then went through his mouth and nose into his danshan. Li Quanqing did not need to rely on any external force at all. The skills operated on their own, and the mana rolled forward, unstoppable. Pop. The shaky bottleneck could not hold on for a few seconds, and was violently broken, and the mana was raised and advanced, pouring out like a flood. The 5th level of key refining. A powerful momentum burst out, and the hair was dancing wildly, shaking off the thick snow on his body, and the wind and snow were stirring. The way of key refining is already halfway. Li Quanqing felt very happy. In the danshan, the blue-gold gaseous mana gathered into a vortex like a tornado. In the deepest part, the mana was surging, and the texture was extremely viscous, and it already had some characteristics of liquid mana. The magic power turns into a spiritual vortex. This is a secret method secretly recorded by major families. It helps cultivators break through the magic power difficulty among the 3 difficulties of foundation building. Those casual cultivators have never even heard of it. Moo. In the ice cave, the golden jade carp floated up at some point, stirring bubbles and swallowing the spiritual energy that escaped from the surroundings. With the nourishment of these spiritual energies, it finally made up the last bit of progress and officially entered the mature stage. Come here, uncle will feed you candy. Li Quanqing looked at the tempting light ball and almost couldn't wait to reach out and touch the light ball, but his body suddenly froze. It felt cold, smooth, and elastic, like a balloon filled with water. How could this be possible? The light ball is naturally an illusion condensed by light, just like gas, illusory and without substance. The light ball in front of him actually had a real touch, unprecedented. It appeared for the first time. Li Quanqing hesitated for a moment, stretched out his palm, and successfully picked the light ball off the carp's head. He was wondering what to do next, when the information flowed, and a large piece of familiar text suddenly bloomed in front of him. Achieve a golden jade carp in the early stage of key refining, and a top grade magic weapon water dragon pendant as a reward. Did he? The gold finger has been automatically updated to the latest version. Please check it. Chapter 32 Water Dragon Pendant. Water Dragon Pendant, calm your mind and get close to the sea. Contains 3 water dragon spells, with power comparable to that of a 9th level key refining cultivator. After the spell is released, one can be restored every 10 days. You are worthy of it, King of Scrolls. It is indeed my favorite fish fry. Li Quanqing was overjoyed. This was the most precious light ball reward he had ever seen. The light ball lay in the palm of his hand, soft and elastic, always tempting him to squeeze it hard. He tried to put the light ball into the storage bag, and it actually succeeded. Li Quanqing's mind moved, and the light ball suddenly exploded in the storage bag, turning into a dragon-shaped jade pendant with blue and green colors interwoven. Very good. I can open blind boxes in the storage bag in the future, and the concealment is greatly increased. Li Quanqing smiled and took out the water dragon pendant to play with it. The jade pendant is warm and flawless, blue as the sea, sparkling in the sun, and engraved with 3 lifelike water blue dragons. The dragon's tail was entangled, and it turned into a jasper-like lotus in full bloom, with mist and fog, as if it would come out of the jade pendant and overturn the rivers and seas in the next moment. He hung the jade pendant on his waist, and he really felt that he was much more friendly to the water spirit between heaven and earth. He thought that his cultivation speed would be faster and close to the top grade spiritual route. But why should I practice by myself? Isn't it better to lie down and pick up light balls? Li Quanqing refused to waste his energy and decided to let the spiritual fish roll up first. This batch of green jade carp has been harvested. The problem now is whether to sell them all or continue to raise them. Before, a stone spirit loach broke through the 2nd level of key refining, but there was no light ball reward. It seems that it will break through to the middle stage of key refining. We need to continue the experiment. Li Quanqing thought to himself that this green jade carp that was determined to turn into a dragon must not be sold. With rich rewards, it is a natural king of roles and is the most suitable carp leader to command the fish school. Maybe there will be a day when it will really turn into a dragon in the future. Winter has passed and spring has come. The snowstorm finally gradually disappeared with time. The thick ice gradually melted, the spring water rippled, and it was a season for all things to revive and reproduce. Even without the influence of the acacia fragrance, the female spirit fish still rutted the golden patterned green jade carp every day, rubbing their bodies against him. But this guy was still aloof and not interested at all. He was obsessed with cultivation all day and couldn't extricate himself. I want to turn into a dragon, green jade carp, female fish. It will only affect the speed of my dragon transformation. Cultivation, key refining level 1, 11.11%. Li Quanqing found it funny and decided to keep it for a long time, so he gave this guy a name. Ao King. Ao, this is the surname of the 4 Seas Dragon clan in the previous life. I hope this big green carp will not disappoint his earnest expectations. Here, this is the deed of the Bao King Fang shop that the family rewards you. Deep in the weapon hall, the 3rd elder casually handed over a deed, which was impervious to water and fire and full of spiritual light, magic weapons, elixirs, talismans, spiritual rice. You can sell anything. The family will not interfere. There is only one mandatory task for weapon refiners, which is to hand in 4 magic weapons free of charge every year. For each magic weapon, you will be given 3 sets of spiritual materials for refining for free. So good treatment? Li Quanqing's eyes sparkled. With his weapon refining level, the success rate is almost 100%, so he can get more benefits from the family. How many weapon refiners have those old guys secretly recruited? They will definitely give us some resources. Li Quanqing sneered. You need to go to this shop in person with the deed. It just so happens that Beoking Fang is going to hold a big auction. Are you interested in joining me? Li Quanqing had also heard of the name of the Beoking auction. It was held every 10 years and all the goods were good. Moreover, 2 days ago, Li Quanqing had just returned from hunting monsters and was resting in the market. He invited him to participate in a trade fair among the young generations of several foundation building families. Most of these family cultivators were from side branches, without the support of their parents, and had shallow foundations. They were not even qualified to lie down and raise fish. They could only fight monsters and earn resources, and it was easy to buy monster cubs from them. The young man was quite moved. Li Quanqing agreed immediately, looking forward to gaining some experience at the auction. As for safety, not to mention the 2 trump cards now, the Vajra talisman and the water dragon pendant. Just relying on the brother of Li Wei Tang whole master Kun Li foundation peak great perfection Li head. The ones who should be afraid are those blind robbers. Li Quanqing put away the deed and walked inside the weapon refining hall. Hearing all the polite hello, senior brother, he was in a wonderful mood. Wearing the custom-made fish and dragon pattern robe of the family's new weapon refiner, he got lost in the book hall for 3 or 4 times. Li Quanqing found something a little bit wrong. Recently, he seemed to have not seen Li Quanqing, the naughty kid. This was very abnormal. He thought about it and found Li Quanqing, who was preparing for the local school assessment and reviewing hard. Good morning, junior sister. Have you had your meal? The girl looked at the big sun above her, her eyes alert. What are you doing? You have squeezed my spirit stones clean a long time ago, and there is not a single spirit sand left. How can you say that, junior sister? Although you lost the spirit stones, you got priceless knowledge in return. Li Quanqing blinked his eyes. His face was not red, and his heart was not beating. As a famous genius weapon refiner, the disciples of the weapon hall who asked him for tutoring and private lessons can be said to have lined up from Kingayu Island to Kingpin Island. The only drawback is that the price is a little more expensive. What's more, I gave it to junior sister at a friendly price, which is a full 95% discount. The boy muttered. His voice was small enough for someone to hear clearly. Li Quanqing was so angry that he gnashed his teeth and silently practiced the blinking due to suppress the nameless flame in his chest. If you have something to say it quickly, and if you have to fart quickly. Okay. Li Quanqing became serious. Where did that kid Li Quanqing go? I haven't seen him recently. You don't know? The girl looked surprised, clicked her tongue, and said sarcastically, you are worthy of being my senior brother. No matter what big things happen in my uncle's family, you always ask me, an outsider, what big things can happen in their family. Li Quanqing pretended not to care, but his ears perked up. Could it be that Li Quanqing has a younger brother who fights for the family property? Li Quanqing was almost choked to death by this sentence and rolled his eyes at him. If I were your relative, I would definitely be so angry that I would never have anything to do with you again. The matter is much more serious than this. Your uncle went out for an expedition and was seriously injured. He owed a lot of debts and was going to sell the ancestral fish pond to pay off his debts. Fish pond. District B fish pond. Li Quanqing instantly grasped the key points and couldn't help rubbing his paws. Junior sister, be careful. The cause, process, and result of the incident were very simple. More than half a year ago, my uncle Li Yuheng spent a lot of spirit stones and failed to compete for the position of family steward, and his self-esteem was damaged. With great efforts, he prepared to buy a first-class top-grade elixir breaking elixir Tang Huadan, break through the 7th level of key training, and then surprise everyone. Unfortunately, there were not enough spirit stones, so he could only go back to raise fish honestly. First, he bought a lot of sapphire carp fry, ready to make a fortune. The result is imaginable insect plague plus snow disaster, a set of combined punches. The loss was heavy, but Li Yuheng was unwilling. He was like a gambler who lost red eyes, and he wanted to break through the 7th level of key training. take back everything that was robbed by others. Just at this time, through his friends, he learned the secret news of an ancient cave. Li Quanqing was overjoyed, thinking of the previous fortune, borrowed a lot of spirit stones to buy life-saving equipment, and went there happily. Unexpectedly, this time, it was actually a conspiracy set up by others to specifically cheat him. The big fat sheep. Li Quanqing was really cheated. Although he finally saved his life, he might as well die. He didn't earn a single spiritual stone, and his previous debts broke out collectively. He lived a miserable life, and lost all his pants. After listening to the whole story, Li Quanqing didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, he sighed and couldn't help but feel a little regretful. But if you lose, you have to admit it, and stop the loss in time. How many cultivators died because of this word greed? Li Quanqing took it as a warning. Then, he thought with a smile, how many spiritual stones should I pay to buy the fish pond in Zone B? This fish pond is definitely in his pocket. Out of courtesy to his elders, Li Quanqing first went to the family market to buy some gifts. The boy originally thought that taking 2 big black carps would be enough, but thinking of his hard-working aunt, and now he has no shortage of money, he finally took a green jade carp. Holding the spiritual fish, Li Quanqing suppressed his curiosity and could not wait to board Kingpin Island and head straight for his uncle's cave. Chapter 33 Quan Fu. The last time Li Quanqing came to his uncle's house, it was crowded with guests and the gate was filled with relatives who came to give gifts. But now it is deserted. To be precise, even sparrows would despise this house. The plaque is made of webs, the stone door is half closed, and the courtyard is covered with lush grass. Unlucky, unlucky. An old man passed by with his grandson, and spit at the wall with disgust in his eyes. Immortal cultivators have a good memory, and can remember everything they see. Li Quanqing remembered this old guy. Last time, it was him who held the gift, and waited respectfully in line outside his uncle's house. He even looked down on his big black fish as a gift that was not up to standard. Who would have thought that times have changed, and people's minds have changed? Hello, sir. When Liu Deng saw the robe on him, his eyes lit up immediately. He hurriedly pulled his grandson to bend over and trot over. Kinda, why don't you pay your respects to this weapon refiner? Li Quanqing shook his head and didn't bother to pay attention to him. He pushed open the half-closed door and walked straight in. The old man was left behind with a look of astonishment. The child was ignorant and was excited to catch crickets in the weeds. Li Quanqing walked in the cave, and the stone steps were covered with weeds, which looked dilapidated. A hard-working person like my aunt didn't even have the heart to take care of her own home. It can be seen that something big has really happened. By the garden pond, Li Quanqing was standing there catching algae. When he saw him, he snorted, "Why are you here? Look at your father, and come to see you too. Are you here to see a joke?" Li Quanqing spoke with a sarcastic tone, but still led the way in front. Along the way, the two were very silent. "Teach me how to raise a green jade carp." Li Quanqing suddenly spoke, his head lowered, his voice muffled, and he kept kicking the pebbles on the road with his feet. Li Quanqing was surprised. He didn't expect this boy to say such a thing. "You don't want to learn how to refine weapons? I don't have spiritual stones or resources. My father won't let me learn." The boy turned his face away, aggrieved, tears rolling in his eyes, full of unwillingness. "Besides, my mother is too tired. I want to help her." Li Quanqing thought for a moment and told the truth. "Your father is going to sell the fish pond. Even if you want to be a fisherman, I'm afraid you don't have the conditions." Li Quanqing was stunned in place and instantly felt that the sky was about to fall and his future life was bleak. "Kinga, you're here." When Li Quanqing saw his aunt, he felt as if she was 20 or 30 years older, and her eyebrows were full of fatigue. Li Rao looked at the green jade carp in her nephew's hand and wanted to refuse, but thought of the current situation at home. The woman opened her mouth, but finally took over. "Go and see your uncle first." Li Quanqing was drinking at this time, and he looked quite happy, humming a little tune and throwing peanuts into his mouth while drinking. "Dad, my senior brother Quanqing is here to see you." Li Quanqing shouted with his neck shrunk, timid, and a faint fear on his face. "TSK, what is this kid doing here? He must have bad intentions." Li Yuheng sneered, did not get up to greet the guest, and continued to sit there and eat and drink. Uncle, Li Quanqing shouted with a perfunctory smile on his face. He glanced at the man's empty sleeves. His left arm was broken at the root, which hurt his foundation. There was no hope of breaking through the foundation in this life. You have become a weapon refiner, and you have reached the 5th level of key refining. That's incredible, incredible. You are indeed the son of my eldest sister. Li Yuheng looked as if he had seen through me. Why did you choose this time, when you came earlier or later? You also want that fish pond? Li Quanqing, who was standing next to him, heard this and his expression became increasingly gloomy. He couldn't help but clench his clothes tightly. After all, it is the foundation passed down by our ancestors. If it falls into the hands of others, it will be a joke. Li Quanqing was frank and always spoke his mind. He was ready to bleed heavily. What a pity, what a pity. Li Yuheng drank and chewed his food, making a sound in his mouth. If I had known you were coming, I would have waited before selling it. The highest bidder wins. You sold our fish pond? Even more excited than Li Quanqing was his aunt, who had just walked in. The woman's eyes suddenly turned red, like a mother animal protecting her cubs, and she rushed forward with her teeth and claws bared. That's what our family's Quanzu will use for refining weapons and practicing in the future. How can you sell it? Woo woo woo. Woman, you are so noisy. I want to sell my things. Do I need to discuss it with you? A yellow-faced woman. Li Yuheng's expression suddenly became impatient, and his magic power surged. He overturned the wine table and pushed his aunt to the ground. Li Quanqing, who was next to him, rushed forward to help his mother and was also slapped twice. Enough. Clang! Exclamation mark. The sword rang, and a sword light suddenly flew out of Li Quanqing's sleeves, and in the blink of an eye, it flew around Li Yuheng's neck several times. In the end, the kingly sword was suspended in front of the man's eyes, only an inch, and the Gengjin sword light flickered, with murderous intent. You're too much. Who did you sell the fish pond to in the end? Li Quanqing asked with a cold look. The sword's light was like a star, pressing against the center of his brow, and a bone-chilling chill enveloped his whole body. Li Yuheng was so scared that he was sweating profusely, his lips trembling, and he wanted to scold his nephew, but in the end he was scared and said angrily, 2,000 spirit stones were sold to that old thing Li Quanqing. Li Quanqing. Li Quanqing's mind immediately emerged with the old man who was smoking a pipe, always smiling at everyone he saw, and making money with harmony. This is a bit tricky. Bully the weak and fear the strong. Take care of yourself. Li Quanqing took a last look at his uncle, snorted and left. In the end, it was Li Quanqing who sent him out the door, and a red slap was printed on his face, which was burning and painful. The boy stared at his toes, and tears finally flowed out, and he stammered, Thank you, brother. Li Quanqing looked at the 15-year-old child in front of him, without saying much, but just patted the other's shoulder. It's time to grow up, Quanzu. He took out a booklet, which recorded his experience in fish farming. Even if you don't have your own fish pond, you can rent one and work as a fisherman for those big fish pond owners to save spiritual stones. Determination is not expressed by a few words, but must be proved by facts. I hope this cousin can really prove his determination with practical actions. Li Quanqing waved goodbye, indicating that there was no need to see him off. The moon rises over the sea, and the jade hook hangs in the sky. It was getting late, and Li Quanqing was too lazy to go back to the fish pond. He walked on the Bluestone Road on his way home, and the more he thought about it, the angrier he got, and finally he couldn't help cursing. When he had finished cursing, he arrived home. Unexpectedly, there were two people standing at his door in the swaying shadows of the trees, as if they had been waiting for a long time. Sparks flickered under the tree, like flickering fireflies, and the faint smell of tobacco penetrated into the nose. Li Quanqing had an idea, and called out uncertainly, Uncle 19. Hey, Brother King is finally back. The man in the dark laughed, his voice old, and walked under the moonlight. It was Li Quanqing, who was thinking about him. Behind the old man, there was a plump young man with a round face, wearing a khaki Taoist robe, with a simple and shrewd look. It was getting darker and the dew was heavy. The clothes on the two were wet, which showed that they had been standing here for a long time. It's cold and damp in spring, Uncle. Come with me into the house, Li Quanqing said hurriedly. No trouble, no trouble. The old man heard that Kinga became the family's weapon refiner, so he specially prepared a gift. You can leave after giving it to him. It won't be a problem. Li Quanqing smiled and knocked on the round-faced boy's head with his pipe, making a tapping sound. Quanfu, why don't you take out the gift and let your brother take a look and see if he is satisfied? I revised it again and again. The family portrait is not easy to write. I feel that it is written in an ordinary way. The literary youth disease has come back again. Alas. I'm too nan. Bald. Chapter 34. What you wish for. The moment he heard about the gift, Li Quanqing's heart skipped a beat, and he came up with a very outrageous guess. When the deed to the fish pond in Area B appeared in front of him, the boy was still stunned. This is too valuable. I can't take it. Li Quanqing refused decisively. This is a full 2000 low-grade spirit stones. Although there must be some water in it, that Li Yuheng asked for too much. It is also very precious. I'm afraid the old man has emptied the coffin. Take it. It's just a gift. Does Kingja have to be estranged from an old man like me and stop interacting with me just because he has become a weapon refiner? Li Quanqing frowned and secretly poked his own grandson with his pipe. Li Quanfu's round and pleasing face showed helplessness, and he hurriedly stepped forward and stuffed the deed to him. Brother, it's just a little gift. Please accept it. Li Quanqing couldn't refuse, so he had to change the subject and looked up and down at the yellow-clothed boy. This must be Quanfu. I have always heard my uncle mention him. He is really handsome. Li Quanfu smiled innocently. I don't have the talent and skills like my brother. I can only work as a clerk in the market to make a living. Li Quanqing also joined in. This kid has no other advantages, but he is honest and eloquent. He has been training in Baoking market for several years and is ready to find a good boss. Li Quanqing was moved when he heard this and thought of the store that the family rewarded him. He must just want to be a hands-off boss, and he just lacks a smart, experienced, and knowledgeable clerk. This time, Mr. Li Quanqing came prepared and had other plans, but it can be regarded as each taking what he needs. Li Quanqing touched the thick fish pond title deed in his hand and said with a smile, it just so happens that the family has recently rewarded me with a shop. There is a lot of work to be done. Are you willing to commit yourself to it? Yes. Yes. Li Quanfu was overjoyed and quickly changed his address. Meet the boss. For a moment, both the host and the guest were happy. Yameo District, fish pond number 45. I'm back again. The fish pond was surging, shining, and the lotus leaves were green. The scenery was beautiful and refreshing. Li Quanqing took out the spirit boat and floated on the water. The misty spiritual energy hit his face and turned into white mist floating on the water, within reach. After the title deed change of Changqing Palace, this fish pond finally belonged to him completely, and he got what he wanted. Because he bought it from the old man, the rumors about the rift between uncle and nephew did not spread. Plop, plop. 20 green jade carps dived into the water, all of them very comfortable, with wide and flowing fins, like blue clouds floating under the water. They were born here when they were young, and they were very happy to return to their hometown, slapping the water with their tails, making a rustling sound. Sashimi green jade carp. I can smell a familiar smell, like I'm back in my mother's arms. Let's take a nap first. Cultivation. Key refining level 1. 10.35%. The other spiritual fish were similar, with laziness written all over their bodies. Buzz! Exclamation mark. Li Quanqing took out the stone spirit seal, and it bloomed with yellow clouds, and began to transform the terrain, creating large reefs protruding from the water again. Snap, snap. 30 bright moon shells were placed on top of the reef, submerged in the cold sea water rich in spiritual energy, and their shells opened and closed comfortably. Love of beauty, moonlight shell. Finally, I finally washed all the dirt off my body. This area of water is simply heaven. Maturity. 68%. Bliss of shells. Moonlight shell. Oh my god. Since I left my mother, I finally saw such pure water again. I'm so moved that I want to cry. Maturity. 67%. Is it that exaggerated? Li Quanqing looked strange. These shells were already the size of a fist, pure white and flawless. Every night, he and the jade carps worshipped the moon and practiced. In a few months, they can become monsters in the key refining stage. The iron bone crab and the stone spirit loach were left in the fish pond of Area C, and the waters of Area B were reserved for the new spirit beasts that were about to arrive. Li Quanqing released hundreds of big black carps to add vitality. Under the stimulation of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, several big black carps directly entered the mature stage. Harvest an adult big black carp and reward 10 low-grade water arrow talismans. Harvest an adult big black carp and reward a small spiritual energy group. Li Quanqing noticed that the aura group brought by the big black carp had the word small added to it. This was indeed the case. A group of aura entered the body and had some effect. The amount of aura group has not decreased, but my cultivation has improved. Li Quanqing was quite satisfied with refining the aura. He found that among all the fish, crabs, loaches and shellfish, only the big black carp and the green jade carp had ever offered a light group reward. Other spirit beasts had never appeared. When my cultivation is higher, I have reached the great perfection of key refining, or even broken through the foundation building. Will the aura group of the green jade carp also lose its effect? Li Quanqing had a trace of worry. Fortunately, there are gold patterned variants on the green jade carp, and the gold patterned green jade carp can also evolve further, with the possibility of advancing to the second level foundation building monster. Perhaps one day, my fish pond will raise thousands of ancient green dragons, just to harvest the light group reward, and help me become an immortal? Li Quanqing had a ridiculous idea in his mind, and he couldn't help laughing. These were too far away from him, so he should just set a small goal. For example, expand the number of green jade carp to 100. Or, get the top 10 in the clan competition, change to blue sea tide rising skill, and lay the foundation for foundation building. Or, break through the 7th level of key refining, rent a spiritual island, become the master of an island, and own 10,000 acres of fish ponds. Towards the peak of life. As the young man thought about it, he grinned and laughed, his eyes curved into crescents. After some imagination, rationality returned to reality. Tomorrow he would go to Gengjin to participate in the big auction. Li Quanqing began to count his storage bags. 20 green jade carp opened 5 medium grade green carp swords, 60 medium grade ice arrow charms, several aura balls, and a water dragon pendant. 1 high grade diamond charm, 4 medium grade golden light shield charms, 57 low grade rockfall charms, 13-14 low grade water arrow charms, 3 goods of beauty enhancing spiritual mud, and several elixirs and magic tools, as well as 743 pieces of low grade spirit stones and 87 pieces of spirit sand, both in small and large amounts. Li Quanqing played with the water dragon pendant. Inside the crystal clear jade, there was an amazing and violent power surging. New spirit beast, here I come. Early in the morning, Kingdo Island. The white fog covered the dock, and the fierce sea breeze blew, salty, wet and cold, blowing people's bones to pieces. Woo. With the sound of the horn, the large spirit boat broke through the sea like a mountain, riding the wind and waves, full of oppression. Quanfu, let's go. Li Quanqing took out the spirit boat, and greeted his friends. Spirit boat. You are worthy of being the boss, with great financial resources. Li Quanfu's eyes were full of admiration. Whether it was true or false, he was really comfortable with the flattery. I have told you, so many times, that you don't have to call me the boss, just call me by my name or my clan brother. Li Quanqing shook his head helplessly. Just as he was about to take out the spirit stone and inlay it on the deck, a burly figure like an iron tower suddenly enveloped him. What are you doing here? Li Quanqing appeared silently and grabbed someone by the back of his collar. To participate in the auction, didn't the whole master say that we should take a boat to Gengjin? Li Quanqing kicked his legs in the air and found that it was difficult to break free from the big hand with his initial strength of body training, so he gave up resistance instantly. Where is the whole master spirit boat? Why can't we squeeze in together? The young man looked around. Li Quanqing looked at the small spirit boat under his feet with a look of disgust and casually pointed to the large spirit boat not far away. That one is mine. Come on, get on the boat with me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, Beoking Fang. The second level spiritual boat was sailing on the sea, as huge as a mountain. No matter what was in the way, it would be smashed to pieces. The hulls on both sides of the ship were raising turbid waves. Li Quanqing stood on the deck, watching the waves more than 100 meters high reaching the sky, rumbling over, and finally smashing on the formation into white waves like silk. He screamed excitedly. Li Quanqing was not much better. Looking around, there were all raging waves, wave after wave, endless, covering the sky and the sun, as if traveling through the seabed. It's still good to be young. The third elder Li Quanqing stood in the distance, watching this scene with a smile. He remembered that when his brother broke through the foundation building, he excitedly took him to fly thousands of miles away in one breath. The vast sea of Qingming is indistinguishable, and the 9-day clouds are within reach. From then on, the seeds of foundation building took root in his heart. 4 hours later, the spiritual boat arrived safely at Beoking Fang City. There were practitioners coming from all directions, the sky was full of streamers, and the sea was covered with boats. Beoking Dao was more lively than ever before. You young people can go and have fun by yourselves, and you don't have to accompany an old man like me. Li Quanqing handed over a VIP token of the auction house, which could go directly to the VIP box. See you later, Hall Master. Li Quanqing waved his hand. His tone was very casual, and he felt relaxed when facing his own elders. Li Quanqing next to him was much more respectful, tiptoeing and not daring to breathe heavily. Quanqing, here. Demon Hunter Li Quanqing was standing at the dock. His figure was as straight as a gun, dressed in black. Strangers were not allowed to approach. His angular face was tense, and he was cold and distant. Standing in the crowd, he was like a crane standing out among chickens, a complete conspicuous bag. Is that the third elder, Lord Li Quanqing? Li Quanqing looked across the sea and saw the burly figure, his eyes regretful. What a pity, we missed each other. Both of them are pure body refining cultivators who advocate strength. Li Quanqing is even known as the first person under the foundation building of the Qingyu Li family. Many clan members with the character Quan regard the third elder as their life idol, and are very inspiring. Where to go first, your newly acquired shop, or the monster street? Li Quanqing retracted his gaze, and looked at the young man in bamboo green Taoist robes. His expression was so envious. That's a shop in Beoking Fang City. A Li family cultivator like him whose parents are both mortals may not be able to save so many spirit stones, even if he fights for his life for a lifetime. Li Quanqing is lucky. After becoming a weapon refiner, the family directly awarded him a shop. This is the importance of production-oriented talents. Let's go to the shop first and see what it looks like. Li Quanqing took out the deed, and on the back was a map of the entire Beoking Fang City, with the location of the shop specially marked. As they entered the island protection formation of the market, a conspicuous red dot that kept moving appeared on the map, representing the location of everyone. Beoking Fang covers a large area, and the number of shops is also amazing. The most prosperous area is Beoking Street, located in the center, swallowing and spitting out people coming from all directions. To be able to open a shop here, at least there must be a cultivator at the level of key refining great perfection. Those buildings that occupy the largest area and attract the most attention are all major foundation building forces without exception. Magnificent, with carved beams and painted rafters. For example, the Beoking auction house jointly built by the Li and Zi families, the Danwan building of the Wan family of Tonghe Island, the Yuntang Hall of the Yun family of Zioyao Island, and the Sisan Pavilion of the Sita family of Taiyuan. Even the Jiandan sect, which the 5 major foundation building families rely on, the Shuhua sword sect, has opened a temple here to sell skills and spiritual arts. Li Quanqing's shop naturally cannot be here, but it is not far away. It is a street extending from Beoking Street, and there are many pedestrians coming and going in front of the door. Although all weapon refiners have family rewards, some shops are located in remote areas and cannot make any money. Just looking at the location of this shop, you can tell how much the owner is valued in the weapon refinery hall. Li Quanqing looked at the things sold in the surrounding shops and was already thinking about how to attract customers. Li Quanqing took out the array plate that the family had given him earlier, infused it with mana, and opened the array in front of him. A 3-story building appeared in front of him, with antique style, blue bricks and blue tiles, and it looked a bit old. Pushing the door open and walking in, all kinds of tables, chairs and utensils were available, and the shelves and cabinets made of sandalwood were neatly arranged, each with a formation aura guarding it. Pushing open the inner door, there was actually a small courtyard. Next to the stone well, a cherry tree took root in the soil, absorbing and exhaling spiritual energy, and was green and lush. The treatment of the family weapon refiners is too good. Li Quanqing's eyes were red with envy. This place is close to the center of the town, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is rich, not inferior to the second level spiritual veins. It is simply a good cave. You can move in directly with your luggage. Well, there is a spirit gathering array in this yard. Li Quanqing fiddled with the array plate. Around the cherry tree, small bright yellow triangular flags emerged from the soil, and the array patterns intertwined, stirring up a breeze. Spiritual energy rolled in, and white mist curled up, just above the knees. The air was clear and refreshing. As a place to stay in the market, it is a very good choice. Li Quanqing was quite satisfied. He looked at the round-faced boy. Quanfu, what kind of business do you think our shop should do? Li Quanfu did not answer immediately, but pondered first. To answer my brother, I just saw that there are all kinds of talismans, elixirs, and spiritual rice shops on this street, and there are even 2 magic tools. It can be seen that the competition is not small. As the owner's weapon refiner, it is naturally better to open a magic tool shop with a stable supply of goods. But low-grade magic tools are not competitive. It is better to focus on magic tools and sell other spiritual objects. In the early stage, our shop will be honest and trustworthy, and the reputation of good quality and low price will be spread. Wait until my brother's weapon refining skills rise, and all kinds of mid to high grade magic tools can be picked up at will, and naturally it will be a hit. This is indeed a very pertinent suggestion. Low-grade magic tools are sold everywhere, and the market is too competitive. Fortunately, there is no rent for my own shop, otherwise I will lose a lot of money. Li Quanqing thought for a moment, and took out a kingly sword. What do you think of this sword? A mid-grade magic weapon. Li Quanfu's eyes lit up, and he immediately gained confidence. I looked at the 2 weapon refining shops, both of which were run by small families. With this kingly sword, we can use the name of our Qingyu Li family for publicity, which will be much easier in the early stage. He was almost impatient, and wanted to open the shop now to show his value. There is no rush for this matter. Let's open our shop after the auction. Li Quanqing had his own ideas. Although the Baoqing auction attracted a large number of cultivators, there were good and bad people mixed together, and he might encounter a dragon crossing the river. He didn't even have the late stage of key refining, so he had better live a little longer. Anyway, guarding the treasure pot of Fangxi, there will definitely be no shortage of spiritual stones in the future, so there is no need to rush. After visiting the shops, the 3 of them went to Monster Street together to participate in a small gathering of the younger generation of several foundation building families. Monster Street, as the name suggests, is a place where all kinds of monster meat and materials are sold. Across several streets, one could smell the pungent smell of blood. The corpses of various monsters were hung in front of the shops in a showy manner. 99% of them were sea monsters. The bright red blood of the beasts dripped, dyeing the stone pavement under his feet red. Add to that the cold and gleaming scales, the ferocious fangs and tentacles. A tragic breath came over him, shocking the eyes. Li Quanqing looked around. Because of the golden finger, he had read a lot of books about monsters. At this time, he just happened to combine those pictures with the true appearance of the monsters, and suddenly felt a sense of eye-opening. Hey, there are copper-shelled crabs. Suddenly, Li Quanqing paused, and saw more than a dozen large crabs with brass-colored shells. The book said that, if the bloodline of the ironbone crab is further developed, it will evolve into this copper-shelled crab, which has the potential to advance to the middle and late stages of key refining. Chapter 36 Copper Crab. The feet of the copper armored crab are as big as millstones and look like shiny brass statues. The sharp crab feet are baring their teeth and claws, giving people a sharp feeling. The huge crab shell is not a whole piece, but is composed of densely packed shuttle-shaped structures, like the shape of chainmail. I guess this monster must have been very majestic and domineering when it was alive. Unfortunately, it is dead now and has become meat on the chopping board for the monks to visit. Wow, this store is a crab nest. There are so many. Li Quanqing glanced into the store, and more than a dozen copper armored crab corpses were placed there, which was eerie and terrifying. Li Quanqing felt a little regretful and asked the boss if there were any spiritual crab cubs for sale, but got a negative answer. This exterminated group did have pregnant female crabs, but they escaped, and some crab cubs were killed in the battle, and nothing was gained. Li Quanqing sighed and touched the bodies of several copper armored crabs. He felt like he was facing those silly big crabs at home. Suddenly, a group of familiar words jumped out in front of him. Stubborn copperhead, copper armored crab, swallow, swallow, swallow. I must survive. Maturity 7%. Li Quanqing's pupils shrank slightly, and then he pretended to be calm and touched all the copper armored crabs one by one. Only 2 of the corpses showed signs of monster cubs. Did they take advantage of the chaos on the battlefield to swallow their children and protect them, or to prevent them from falling into the hands of human monks and being enslaved? The crabs poisoned and ate their children. The boy didn't want to go into it and looked at the boss. How much is the copper armored crab? This is a good thing. The crab shell is naturally suitable for refining shields and magic tools, and the crab meat is even more fresh, sweet and tender. Just steam it, and your tongue will fall off. The boss kept talking and boasting. Thank you, 50 spirit stones each. This price is expensive, too expensive. Li Quanqing was about to negotiate the price when Li Quanfu stepped forward and said, "Boss, leave it to me." "Boss, you are really dishonest. These dead crabs have been left unsold for days, and they stink." The young man spoke first, with a loud voice, and he had mastered the essence of bargaining. "It shouldn't be like this. I use the ice charm to suppress it every day." The boss looked suspicious, sniffed, and indeed smelled a faint fishy smell. "Also, I saw that the monster meat in other shops is cut. Why do you sell it whole?" Li Quanfu crossed his arms and said, "Is it because the crab shell is too hard, and you can't pry it open at all, and you are deliberately cheating customers?" The boss looked slightly embarrassed. This really touched his sore spot. The copper-shelled crab has a fused shell all over its body. When it grows up, its hardness is comparable to that of mid-grade magic weapon, and its defense is amazing. The hunting method of the monster hunter is to use various shock spells, or burn and freeze. Kill the copper-shelled crab from the inside, and the shell is intact. This also led to the fact that sometimes, after buying a copper-clad crab home, you spent a lot of energy to dismember the crab shell, but all you got was a pile of mincemeat. After a bargaining, Li Quanqing successfully bought 2 copper-clad crabs for 69 spirit stones. The copper-clad crabs were so huge that they could not be put into a small storage bag at all, so the clerk had to move them to the customer's home. Seeing this, Li Quanqing was relieved. The storage bag cannot store living things, but it accidentally allowed the crab cubs to survive. Li Quanfu volunteered to go back to the shop with the clerk to ensure that nothing unexpected happened. Li Quanqing and Li Quanch successfully found a place and continued to participate in the trading meeting. Kikun Pond. The autumn water gurgled, the pool water rippled, the peach forest on the shore was like fire, and spirit deer and monkeys appeared from time to time. Several buildings were located on the shore, with pavilions and towers, exquisite and orderly, all very exquisite and antique. No one could have imagined that at the end of the bloody and barbaric monster street, there was such a high-level cave. After Li Quan showed his credentials, the 2 were respectfully welcomed into the welcoming hall. A blue-purple snake head hung in front of the hall, with a ferocious appearance and a single horn on its forehead. From time to time, lightning flashed between its scales, and it was very powerful. Thunderhorn Python. Li Quanqing recognized this monster. An adult Thunderhorn Python is powerful enough to rival a cultivator at the 7th level of key refining. Most importantly, they are group living monsters, extremely difficult to hunt, and few casual cultivators dare to take advantage of them. This is the trophy that my master won during a hunt of the Yun family. The maid next to him introduced softly, with a hint of pride on her face. Li Quanqing's mind emerged with the owner of this cave, who was also the initiator of this trading meeting. The casual cultivator Yun Jizi, with the cultivation level of the 6th level of key refining. A few years ago, due to fate, he was valued by an elder of the Yun family, and became the offering of the foundation building family. The Yun family of Zioao Island, with the sale of spirit boats as the family foundation, has 3 great foundation building cultivators. Ranked second among the 5 major families. A lot of information emerged in his mind, which was the instinct of a family disciple. Dear guest, the trade fair has begun. Please follow me. The maid came from the back hall, her tone quite apologetic. Because of the copper-armored crab, Li Quanqing was late, so he naturally wouldn't be angry. Led by the maid, the two had just entered the trade fair when they saw a cultivator standing in the hall and shouting, 8 jade water snake eggs in exchange for medium grade magic tools, top grade cultivation life-saving pills or equivalent spiritual stones. Jade water python. Li Quanqing's eyes lit up. This kind of monster, like the copper-armored crab, will have the strength of the middle stage of key refining when it grows up. Moreover, it has a delicate appearance and a gentle nature. Its blue scales are like transparent crystals and are sought after by many female cultivators. 30 spiritual stones. I'll offer 35, plus a precious spiritual bead. People bid one after another, and the loudest voice was a girl in red, with white skin and delicate face, but a rough laughter stunned several male cultivators. The girl was Zihan Gaiu, a member of the Z family of Baosu Island, who had sold him the bright moon shell, a mid-grade magical instrument, the black turtle shield, and a low-grade green carp sword. Li Quanqing quoted his price. The black turtle shield was the trophy from the last time he killed GXIU, and he had long wanted to replace it. The green carp sword was made during this period, and there were 7 or 8 of them. As soon as these words came out, the whole audience was silent for a moment, and then fell into a greater commotion. Green Carp Sword, the disciple of the King Gaiu Li family has arrived. So young, he has already reached the 5th level of key refining. I'm afraid only Yun Jizi can suppress him here. Low-grade Green Carp Sword, he seems to be a weapon refiner. No wonder he is so rich. Li Quanqing's arrival instantly became the focus of the whole audience. The cultivation of this group of collateral disciples and demon hunters was not high. In addition to Yun Jizi, who was at the 6th level, there were 2 masters at the 5th level of key refining. The rest were small shrimps at the 4th and 3rd levels of key refining, and there was even a 2nd level key refining who came to join in the fun. Li Quanqing is the best here in terms of both cultivation and status. So you are my cousin Quanqing. I'll give these snake eggs to you as a gift, to congratulate you on becoming a weapon refiner. Zihan Gaiu chuckled. The Li and Z families have always been on good terms, and they often address each other as cousins. Come here quickly, cousin will treat you to a drink. Thank you, sister Han Gaiu, for your kindness. Li Quanqing traded the snake eggs first, and then sat down next to her. The eggs of the green water python are slightly larger than pebbles, and feel like green jade, cold and hard, constantly attracting water spirits from all directions. Looking through the eggshell, you can vaguely see a curled up slender shadow. Yun Jizi, who was at the top, also stood up with a wine cup. He was about 30 years old, his eyes were as big as copper bells, and his lush beard under his chin exploded like a mane. I haven't asked yet, who is this young talent from the Li family? Chapter 37 Longevity Turtle. Facing Yun Jizi's question, Li Quanqing also stood up with a wine cup. Li Quanqing, from the King Gaiu Li family. Yun Jizi, from Zioao Island. The two exchanged their names, and drank the whole cup. They could be called fellow Taoists. No one came out to disrupt the situation, and no one jumped out to show off and slap their faces. The atmosphere was harmonious and peaceful. After all, everyone was a family cultivator, so they knew when to advance and when to retreat, and knew etiquette. Li Quanqing smacked his lips. Zihan Gaiu knew that he didn't like to drink, so she poured him tea. It was bitter and astringent, and not good to drink. The trading meeting continued, and it was the next person's turn to stand up and take out a branch of Jiuhua coral to introduce it in detail. While listening, Li Quanqing focused his mind on the snake egg in his hand. The eggshell was flawless like jasper, with light blue spots on the surface, and twisted lines like seawater. It felt very hard to the touch, and there would be no problem, even if it was hit hard. Can such a solid snake egg really be broken from the inside to breed new life? Li Quanqing was somewhat skeptical, and decided to look up some literature, after returning to Qinghai Island. Brother King, are you thinking about how to hatch snake eggs? Zihangyu next to him gulped down the liquor, tilting her slender white neck, and drinking it all in one gulp, feeling very happy. A few drops of light red liquor dripped along the corners of her lips, and the rich aroma of the liquor mixed with the girl's body fragrance drilled into her nose, tickling her heart. Cousin, do you have any tricks? Li Quanqing asked, not resisting. Who doesn't like to stick with beautiful girls? I have a sister who has a jade bird, which is very beautiful, and she shows off to us good sisters every day. My sister is so angry that she has long wanted to raise a few green water pythons, and has prepared a lot of ancient books on raising this kind of spiritual snake in advance. Zihangyu exhaled a breath of alcohol. Her cheeks were stained with a blush, and she held her fragrant cheeks with her hands, deliberately showing off her snow white and delicate arms. Unfortunately, not only was Li Quanqing unmoved, but even Li Quanqing next to him noticed that the focus was a bit off. Emerald bird, it's not that bitch Li Quanqing, is it? His voice was a little loud, and the whole hall was silent for a moment, and then they continued to chat, each in their own circle. Silly, keep your voice down. Zihangyu glared at him. As both were alcoholics, they had known each other for a long time. Yes, it's that bitch Li Quanqing. The red-clothed girl bit her silver teeth secretly, making a creaking sound, and her slightly chubby cheeks were puffed up. Very cute. So it's her, Li Quanqing from Qinghai Island, the first genius of the Li family's side branch. Li Quanqing knew this person. In her early 20s, she had already reached the 6th level of key refining, and was a strong contender for the first place in the family competition after the new year. Moreover, Li Quanqing's fiancé was Li Quanqing, the only top-grade spiritual root of the Quan generation. So, can Brother King give a snake egg to my sister? Zihangyu blinked her big eyes, pitiful, and I felt pity for her. The answer was naturally no. What kind of girl's request is not as fragrant as the light ball reward? When I raise the jade water python, I will definitely give one to Sister Hangyu to kill the prestige of your sisters. Li Quanqing said righteously, and he would not give in no matter what. This snake egg might be able to produce a medium-grade magic weapon, if it is raised. He was stupid to give it to the girl. Zihangyu's eyes were full of resentment, but she still gave him her experience in raising snakes. This woman has always been broad-minded. Li Quanqing returned the favor, and took out a gourd of beauty-enhancing spiritual mud, which smelled fragrant. The resentment in the girl's heart disappeared without a trace in an instant. The trading meeting was still going on. Li Quanqing made moves one after another and bought a lot of monster blood. He practiced the body refining technique True Body of 100 Beasts, which required the blood of monsters to sharpen himself. Li Quanqing ate cakes and watched with interest. After the jade water python, no more spirit beast cubs appeared. There were 2 or 3 adult monsters with strong combat power. They had been tamed and could sign a blood contract for slavery on the spot, which was quite convenient. He looked uninterested. The last person came to the order. This was a casual cultivator at the 5th level of key refining. I don't know how he got in. He took out a dark green turtle egg from the spirit beast bag. It was as big as a basin. It had an ancient and vast aura, and was full of vitality. Li Quanqing was immediately excited when he saw this scene. A longevity turtle egg, with strong vitality, can easily live for 10,000 years, without disasters or calamities. It is indeed an excellent spirit beast, to protect the family and guard the spirit island. However, when he heard this name, Li Quanqing lost interest instantly. He sat back on the cushion with his raised buttocks. The longevity turtle is a well-known and wonderful monster in the world of cultivation. If there are no disasters and calamities, and sufficient resources, it can live for 10,000 years, and continue to break through the realm. The only drawback is that it takes too long. Just to break through the foundation, it takes a full 500 years to accumulate. With the same time and resources, other monsters may have cultivated to the stage of forming a pill. It belongs to the category that casual cultivators can't afford to raise, and the cultivation family thinks it is not cost effective. Li Quanqing was too lazy to even take a look. He preferred those monsters with short growth cycles, which could quickly break through the realm and then harvest the light balls. Like the longevity turtle, it took 10 years to break through the key refining, and its growth rate was very slow. Naturally, he was disgusted. The other family cultivators were also uninterested, and the atmosphere was quite cold. Seeing this, the casual cultivators also looked a little embarrassed. 200, no, 180 low-grade spirit stones. Daoists who like it, just take it away. This price is too expensive. Sure enough, although several people quoted prices, they were all lower than the psychological expectations of this casual cultivator, and the transaction failed. Li Quanqing shook his head and was about to leave and go home to see those crab cubs. Yunjizi suddenly stood up, smiling. Thanks to all the Taoist friends for their kindness. I have recently obtained a spiritual beast. It is majestic and extraordinary. Please appreciate it. Aohao, accompanied by a deep roar, a flame-encircled monster walked with huge limbs and was led out from the back hall. Its head was held high, and its golden red fur was as smooth as silk. It was huge and strong, with dense and majestic mane, and its light golden pupils were bright and energetic, revealing a king's domineering aura. What kind of monster is this? I have never seen it before. The monks exclaimed. Their breathing was a little difficult, and their minds were taken away. Lion? Li Quanqing recognized the appearance of this monster and looked surprised. He actually saw this thing on the island. Red flame lion. This is a monster on land. Li Quanqing is worthy of being a monster hunter. He is experienced and can accurately tell the origin of this monster with a little thought. Something on land? The cultivators present were suddenly shocked. Thousands of years ago, cultivators from the mainland came to the sea to open up wasteland and take root, which led to the prosperity of the East China Sea cultivation world. This is a story that everyone is familiar with, but who has seen the mainland with their own eyes? It is too far away, millions of miles away, plus various natural barriers, which are a headache for even the great cultivators who have established their foundation. People gathered around the lion and looked at it, and they were enlightened. As you can see, this is a spiritual beast from the mainland. Yunjizi cupped his hands and said, let me tell you that after more than 20 years of sailing, my Yun family's cloud boat that moves mountains has finally returned from the mainland with a full load. 1 year after the Baoking Grand Auction, the Zioyao Conference will be held in Zioyao Island Market, inviting fellow Taoists to appreciate the rare treasures from the distant continent together. Chapter 38, Hatching Eggs. Zioyao Conference. Li Quanqing touched the furry lion. The fur was fluffy and warm, and it felt very comfortable. He was looking forward to harvesting some monster cubs shipped from the mainland. Every few decades, the Yun family's cloud boats would travel millions of miles to conduct cross-sea trade. Although the risk was high, it was also profitable. How the red flame lion was touched in the itchy spot, squatting on the ground with its hind legs, and couldn't help but let out a low roar. Its two round and fluffy ears turned back and forth, and its expression was quite anthropomorphic. The originally majestic and domineering appearance also became a little cute. Lionheart pride, red flame lion, yes, that's the spot, scratch it. Damn human race, I've condescended to let you touch it. Why hasn't anyone fed it delicious food yet? Cultivation, key refining level 4, 78%. Even if I've cultivated to become a demon, I'm still a big cat in my bones. A smile flashed in Li Quanqing's eyes. Seeing that the big lion was about to reach the peak of his life, he suddenly pulled his hand away from under the furry neck. It's not a big cat raised by our family, just touch it twice. If you continue to scratch it, it will be impolite. Ayo how? Awoo? Ayo 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 ayo. The climax was forcibly interrupted, and the red flame lion suddenly became anxious. He raised his huge lion head and looked around, frantically searching in the crowd, with endless aftertaste. Unfortunately, Li Quanqing had already left at this time. Back in the shop, Li Quanfu came up to him. How was the harvest, boss? Not bad. Li Quanqing was in a good mood, looking at the two copper-shelled crabs as big as millstones, one in each hand, and carried them directly to his room. Bang! Bang. After closing the door, the boy started to tinker with it. The copper armor of the crab shell was surprisingly solid, with a rounded structure, and even the joints were covered with thin layers of armor. If they wanted to get the crab babies out, they had to guard them. Li Quanqing manipulated the kingly sword, and the Gengjin sword light flickered, making a small hole in the crab shell. Kai kai. A little air gushed out, and a fishy smell spread, with a slight rotten smell. Crunch. Crunch. Li Quanqing used the flying sword as a saw wheel, and carefully, he finally cut the back of the big crab completely. In the bloody flesh, 7 or 8 copper armored crab babies lay inside, not much bigger than a teacup. Snap. Snap. After they adapted to the sudden bright light, they immediately waved their crab claws at the big face in front of them, trying to intimidate the enemy. Looking at the crab babies covered in blood and filth, Li Quanqing shook his head, took them out one by one, and put them in the prepared sea water. Stubborn copperhead, stubborn copperhead, stubborn copperhead. As expected of a crab family, its character is the same as that of the group of iron fools. Li Quanqing picked up a small crab and shook it in the water, to wash off the blood stains. The little guy was dizzy, with stars in his eyes and his claws drooping weakly. The newborn crabs have not experienced the rain and wind, and the color of the crab shell is bright and bright, golden, and feels like a golden statue. Beautiful and noble. Li Quanqing followed the same method, and dismembered another copper-clad crab. Unfortunately, perhaps it was due to food shortage or lack of air, 2 dead crabs appeared in the stomach of this copper-clad crab, their bodies withered and stiff, and wrapped in a large mass of bloody mucus. In the end, a total of 15 copper-clad crab cubs were harvested. Although they were all a little stunted, they were all lively and very aggressive. Shishi. A copper-armored crab opened and closed its mouth, making a sharp chirping sound, struggling to crawl out of the basin and get back into the body of the big copper-armored crab. Are you hungry? Li Quanqing took out the monster meat that he had prepared long ago, tore it into small strips, and handed it to the crab cubs. These little guys have been eating carrion and cannibalism since they were born. This is not a good habit. It needs to be corrected. Sniff. The copper-armored crab cub looked at the strip of meat on its head, tried to pinch it with its pincers, smelled it again, and then gave up decisively. It opened its spider-like crab legs, crawled quickly, and drilled under the body of the big copper-armored crab again. It seems that you are still not hungry enough. Li Quanqing put away the monster meat, and locked up all the little crabs. Prepare to starve them for a few meals to grind their wildness. Of course, he still left a piece of spirit stone, and dried beast meat in the water, to prevent them from really starving to death. The remaining copper-armored crab remains are easy to deal with. The hard crab shell can be preserved for a long time, and used to refine tools later. The fresh parts of crab meat are kept for eating, and the rotten parts are mashed into bait, and fed to the jade carp and iron bone crabs. After a hard trip to the market, you always have to bring some gifts back for your carp and crabs. Li Quanqing believes that he is still a very kind and generous fish pond owner. Li Quanfu and Li Quanjia are both very good cooks. Li Quanqing only needs to sit and wait, and he can eat a delicious crab pot. The cooking skills are really good. The crabs are sweet and delicious. The meat is tender and elastic, and you can really taste the freshness of the sea. After eating, Li Quanqing took out a jade slip and put it on his forehead. This was given to him by Zihan Gaiu, and it records a lot of experience in raising green water pythons. Green water, just by listening to the name, you can tell that this kind of spiritual python was born in the seawater and is naturally close to the water. Because snake eggs are delicious and have many natural enemies, the green water python has evolved a special defense mechanism over a long period of time. The beautiful jade-like shell of each snake egg is extremely strong and difficult to destroy by many spells. If the green water python wants to break out of its shell, the mother snake needs to continuously secrete a special mucus during the incubation process. This liquid can soften the eggshell and help the baby snake to come into this world smoothly. If the mother snake dies due to an accident, the incubation is interrupted, and the hard eggshell is not soft enough. The green water python will use up the nutrients in the egg liquid and die. Evolution is never absolutely perfect, and there are always pros and cons. Li Quanqing picked up a snake egg, The surface of the jade-like eggshell was dotted with sea blue star spots, and ripples formed snake scale-like protrusions. It was just an egg, beautiful as a work of art. Although I don't have a pregnant mother snake, the wisdom of the human race is infinite, and we have long developed a secret recipe for mixing this mucus. Li Quanqing held the jade slip, and there was still a trace of amazement on his face. If there were no such records and the hard work of the predecessors, I'm afraid he would be helpless in the face of snake eggs. This is the inheritance of the world of cultivation, which can guarantee the prosperity and rise of a family. Spirit stone chips, snake saliva flowers, sea crystal sand, herb mud. Li Quanqing spent several days and finally bought all the things recorded in the secret recipe. During this process, the little copper-armored crabs were so hungry that they compromised and tried to swallow a few pieces of dried meat. No matter how stubborn the bones are, they will be broken one day. In the end, according to the strict compatibility ratio, Li Quanqing successfully prepared this artificial spiritual liquid. The spiritual liquid is sticky, like royal blue jelly, exuding a strange fragrance, smelling very cool. Li Quanqing filled the wooden barrel with seawater and poured in the spiritual liquid. In an instant, the seawater was dyed into a sparkling blue. Just in case, he put a snake egg in it first to see if it works. Gurgle. The snake egg sank into the water, and soon bubbles began to emerge one after another, as if something was breathing inside the eggshell. It succeeded, just as recorded in the jade slip. Li Quanqing breathed a sigh of relief and followed the same method to soak all the snake eggs of the green water python in it. After he dealt with the two newly acquired spiritual beasts, the Beoking auction officially began. Chapter 39 Dragon Scale Grass. Wow, there are so many people. Li Quanqing looked at the surging crowd at the Beoking auction house and couldn't help but sigh like a young man. The casual cultivator next to him was about to call him a bumpkin, but when he saw the man in the bamboo green fish dragon robe, he immediately shut his mouth in anger. It turned out that he was a young master who came out from the Qingyu Islands to gain experience. That's fine. Wearing the family robe, walking on the Li family's own territory, his waist was indeed strong, and he walked with vigor. When those casual cultivators and cultivators from small families saw them, they all showed complicated and envious expressions. 3 young masters, do you have VIP tokens? The road was paved with green and gold jade, and the light was so bright that it reflected the golden and magnificent interior of the hall. A pretty woman with bright eyes and a kind look came up, wearing a moon-white gauze dress, outlining a faint and hazy curve. From the tone of her voice, she was also a mortal from the Li family. Li Quanqing took out the token that the third elder had left for him, and the girl's eyes suddenly lit up. So you are the distinguished guest of the weapon hall. Please follow me. These maids have specially trained their postures, and they walk gracefully, showing the fullness and roundness under their skirts. The jade pendants on their earlobes don't even shake. In addition, the noble and elegant aura in their gestures makes people feel relaxed and happy. Several people shuttled through the stairwell and went directly to the top floor. They used the token to open a luxurious box covered by a formation. The door carved with hundreds of flowers slowly opened, and a white mist floated out. The faint fragrance penetrated into the nose, which made people feel refreshed and tired. I thought it was someone. It turned out to be King Boy. Li Kunli looked over and was hugging a pair of twin girls at this time. It was really old, but not old at heart. However, this master of the weapon refining hall is still several years away from the age of 60. According to the lifespan of key refining monks, he can live for a long time. In his previous life, he was also a non-retired person. Quanqing, come in. Don't be shy. We are all family members. This private room is quite large. Li Quanlin is also there, greeting them warmly. In addition, there are 7 family weapon refiners, all of whom express their goodwill. Li Quanqing responded one by one and sat next to his senior brother. The 2 friends behind him were not afraid of the stage and were very calm. Li Quanqing even thought about how to find an opportunity to ask the third elder some questions about body refining. What would this young master like to drink? A delicate voice sounded, like pearls falling on a jade plate, melodious and beautiful, which made people's eyes light up. Li Quanqing also turned his head and immediately saw a plump and beautiful woman in a palace skirt. She was about 30 years old, with thick black hair and the charm of a mature young woman. Her skin was white and delicate and tender. Although her facial features were not beautiful, there was a striking beauty mole at the corner of her eye, which, combined with the pair of watery almond eyes on her face that seemed to be able to speak, was enough to make any man obsessed. Sweet wine, not spicy. Li Quanqing sat on the chair obediently and spoke politely. This beautiful woman was also a cultivator. Her breath was extremely restrained, and she was definitely in the late stage of key refining. Oh, it's true as the rumors on the island. Our new genius boy in the key hall can't drink very well. The young woman giggled and deliberately lowered her body to reveal her white and smooth chest. A fragrant but not greasy body fragrance lingered around the nose. Fourth aunt, don't tease him. Quanqing is still a child. Li Quanlin next to him looked helpless. Hello, fourth aunt. Li Quanqing seemed to have grabbed a life-saving straw with an innocent look, and his eyes were black and round. It's boring, just like your honest father. Li Yujio clapped her hands lazily, and a maid immediately presented a pot of pale yellow wine like the moon. Drink it, pear wine, your mother's favorite drink. Li Quanqing took a sip. The taste was sweet, like drinking rock sugar snow pear, and there was a feeling of being slightly drunk after the after effect. Where are you two boys? Li Yujio played with the nail polish on her nails and looked at Quanzhe and Quanfu without favoring one over the other. I want strong liquor, the strongest liquor, preferably the kind brewed with monster blood. I'll just drink some spiritual spring water. Drinking too much will make my brain inflexible, please. Fourth aunt. Two people, two completely different choices. Fourth aunt, do you know my father and mother? After a few glasses of wine, Li Quanqing completely relaxed and took the initiative to bring up the topic. Of course I know him. Li Yujio was half lying on the soft jade bed, like a charming fox, looking at the mountains from all directions and the peaks from the side. In the family competition that year, it was your mother who beat me to a pulp, without any mercy. The beautiful woman looked at the handsome face of the young man with familiar eyebrows and eyes, her eyes full of resentment. Li Quanqing's scalp was numb when he was looked at, and he could only drink wine continuously. The original Buddha's parents were really amazing, and they knew each other everywhere in the family. It was a pity that, in order to find opportunities, they took a large spiritual boat to the open sea, but unfortunately encountered a big monster, and the whole ship died. Otherwise, he would have a bacchanal. Take a look. This is the list of goods for the auction. Are there any that are tempting? Li Quanlin handed over a scroll made of silk, with the names of hundreds of treasures embroidered with silk thread. Li Quanqing took a few glances, and immediately found many that were tempting. The top grade dragon scale grass, a spiritual grass stained with the blood of high level dragon and snake monsters, is beneficial to the growth of monsters. The medium grade animal food pill, if taken for a long time, can accelerate the spiritual pet's breakthrough and increase the possibility of blood reversion to the ancestors. There are 3 cubs of thunderhorn python, 2 females and 1 male. They live in groups and swallow lightning. When they grow up, their combat power is comparable to that of a cultivator in the late stage of key refining. Which treasure do you like? Tell your fourth aunt. Li Yujio propped up her fragrant cheeks, bare her jade feet, and swayed her white and tender legs. Even Li Quanli couldn't help but take a few more glances. After all, it's our own auction house. We can contact the buyer to trade in advance to avoid being intercepted by others. Can all these treasures be taken? Li Quanqing's eyes sparkled. You can only choose one, greedy little guy. Rules are broken a lot. Can our family's business still be done? Li Yujio stretched out her finger and flicked it on the boy's forehead. Hurry up and choose. The auction is about to start. Li Quanqing quickly browsed through the treasures he liked again. What he wanted most must be the cub of thunderhorn python. Unfortunately, the 3 young snakes were sold in a bundle, which was equivalent to auctioning off 3 late-stage key refining cultivators. He couldn't afford it, even if he sold it. As a second choice, the most useful thing for him was the dragon scale grass. The male jade carp swallowed the seeds of the dragon scale grass, and its blood returned to its ancestral lineage, becoming a golden pattern species. If a whole plant of spiritual grass was fed to Aoking, maybe there would be unexpected results. Fourth aunt, I choose the dragon scale grass. Li Yujio nodded and took out the communication jade card to communicate with others. She was the person in charge of the Li family at Quanqing auction house. Soon, the people below negotiated the terms with the seller, and the efficiency was very high. 4 dragon scale grasses. The seller requires 45 spiritual stones per plant. How many do you want? Li Quanqing touched the bulging storage bag and clenched his fist. I want them all. The little guy is very courageous. Soon someone brought the dragon scale grass over, a 5-inch tall purple-red grass, with leaves shaped like a small snake covered with scales, exuding a strange sweet smell. Li Quanqing had just taken the jade box in his hand when spiritual patterns suddenly appeared on the wall of the room. Swish. Dust flew up, light and shadow intertwined, and a holographic projection effect was formed in the air, showing the scene of the entire auction stage. The Immortal Road is long, and I haven't seen you for 10 years. Welcome all Taoist friends to Quanqing Auction House. Chapter 40 Turtle Eggs. The spiritual patterns blossomed, turning into lifelike projections, and even the auctioneer's hair could be seen clearly. In terms of how to better serve the cultivators, the cultivation world has developed various wonderful spells and formations, which are very perfect. Li Quanqing looked at it for a few seconds, and then retracted his gaze, continuing to look at the jade box in his hand. He took out the 4 dragon scale grasses one by one, looked at them carefully, and was relieved after confirming that there was no problem. Although the items to be auctioned were all checked by the appraiser in advance, he was still not at ease, because he had not seen them with his own eyes. King boy, do you want to feed the dragon scale grass to the jade carp? Li Yujio held a hookah in her hand and puffed out smoke. The effect of this spiritual herb is really good. It is likely to cultivate a few golden patterned alien species. Li Quanqing's heart moved slightly. I have already raised a golden patterned jade carp and want to feed it with dragon scale grass. Does Fourth Aunt have any suggestions? You are good at raising fish. Li Yujio's eyes were surprised. In that case, it would be a waste to eat it directly. It is better to make it into a pill, which can also speed up the practice of spiritual beasts. Li Quanlin next to him coughed and poked his junior brother secretly. Our fourth aunt is one of the best alchemists in the family. Slippery tongue. Li Yujio smiled and pretended to be angry. The beauty mole at the corner of her eye seemed to come alive, and the girl's cuteness came to her face. Li Quanqing understood. Please help me, fourth aunt. He took out a gourd of beauty enhancing spiritual mud. The reward was only this last gourd, but the effect is really good, and it is very lethal to female cultivators. Do you also raise stone spirit loaches? Li Yujio was not very interested in spirit mud, but was paying attention to another unimportant thing. Li Quanqing was stunned for a moment, and nodded honestly. I raise 7 or 8. I have an apprentice, but he is still a long way from becoming a real alchemist. This beauty spirit mud is like an elixir, but not an elixir. It is most suitable for apprentices to practice. What do you think? Li Quanqing was naturally very willing. I will listen to fourth aunt. Okay, I will introduce you to later. Li Yujio took the dragon scale grass. There are many people who ask me to make elixirs. It will take a month. Will you come to get it when the time comes? I will get the elixir for my boss and send it back to Kingpin Island. Fourth aunt. After listening for a long time, Li Quanfu finally got the opportunity to interrupt and ran over with a simple and honest face. This kid is. Li Yujio glanced over. The guy in charge of my shop, the grandson of Mr. Kunshu. So he is the blood of Uncle 19. Then I'll give it to you. Li Yujio treated her clansman very well. She took out a jade pendant and gave it to the fat boy. When you encounter any problems in business, take it to the manager of the auction house. I will tell them we can't let outsiders bully our family. Li Quanqing was moved when he saw this. At this time, the auctioneer finally finished his polite words, and the auction officially began. In order to liven up the atmosphere, the first item was very precious. The top grade magic weapon Kinglin Shield. The Li family's iconic magic weapon, and a defensive treasure. The bidding was endless, and it was very popular. The price went straight to the mark of 400 spirit stones. Li Quanqing was shocked. For those green water python eggs, he sold his black tortoise shield, and now he is short of a defensive magic weapon. Unfortunately, it is too expensive. The hall master said, that when you become a mid-grade weapon refiner, you will be rewarded with a green scale shield, which is considered a family benefit for our weapon refiners. Li Quanqing winked at the side. Don't tell anyone about this. I know. Li Quanqing chuckled. With his current weapon refinement level, he is confident that he can refine a mid-grade green carp sword. He decided to take this reward on the eve of the family competition and go out with the strongest attitude. In the end, the green scale shield was bought by a casual cultivator at the 8th level of key refining for 480 low-grade spirit stones, and he left on the spot. The auction items were one after another, dazzling the eyes. The weapon refiners in the box took action one after another, demonstrating what it means to be arrogant, and threw out a lot of spirit stones. Li Quanqing was very jealous. He had about 500 spirit stones left. He didn't like the cheap ones, and he couldn't afford the expensive ones, so he only bid for a few bottles of beast grain pills. A longevity turtle egg, a famous monster, the best choice to buy back to protect the family. The starting price is 50 spirit stones. The familiar auction item appeared. Li Quanqing took a look and had no interest in bidding. 100 spirit stones. Unexpectedly, the third elder seemed to care a lot and doubled the price. There were not many cultivators who wanted to buy the longevity turtle, and he took the lead, and no one competed with him to bid, and he successfully bought the turtle egg. The cub of the three-headed thunder-horned python. The starting price is 500 spirit stones. Compared with the coldness of the longevity turtle, the thunder-horned python simply ignited the whole audience. Li Quanqing also wanted it, but it was a pity that emptying the storage bag was not enough. In the end, the three-headed snake cub was auctioned at a high price of 2,600 spirit stones. The adult thunder-horned python is in the late stage of key refining. If it is properly cultivated, it can reach the great perfection of key refining in 30 or 40 years. With the same time and resources, the longevity turtle is only at the first or second level of key refining. The gap is obvious at a glance. The appearance of the thunderhorn python seemed to be a signal, and the auction finally came to the final stage. A Tanghua pill, a top-grade breakthrough pill, can help a 6th level key refining cultivator break through the realm. The signature pill of the Wang family of Tanghua Island. Although the family only has one foundation building cultivator, it ranks last among the 5 major families. But in terms of the number of cultivators in the late stage of key refining, it is one of the best. This Tanghua pill was finally auctioned for 1,200 spirit stones, and the competition was very fierce. Li Quanqing glanced at the guy who bought the pill. The other party was wrapped in a robe. I wonder if it was his uncle. A second level, 1000 lotus sword formation, incomplete formation plate, excavated from the ruins of ancient cultivators. After activation, the power is comparable to the first level top grade formation. If it is a formation master, perhaps he can comprehend the ancient cultivation inheritance from it. It's another good thing, but unfortunately no one present is interested. The Li family is good at refining weapons, and the strongest formation inheritance is the Sitter family of Taoyuan Island. The Sitter family has 7 foundation building monks, and the 3rd level formation protects the Taoyuan Islands. It is the undisputed number 1 in terms of strength. It is said that when the monks were acclaiming wasteland 1,000 years ago, the Sitter family was still a golden elixir clan. Although it has declined now, it is still respected and treated favorably by the Shuhua sword sect. Unexpectedly, the person who finally obtained the 1000 lotus sword formation was a woman with a cold voice. The other party was also in the box and did not show her face. Next, there were 5 or 6 precious treasures, including a pulse protection pill. This pill can protect the meridians and assist the monks to break through the foundation. Even if the breakthrough fails, it can protect the meridians and save lives. Next, it is the last item of this auction, the top grade magic weapon, Kingai armor. The armor with precious light was sent to the auction table, crystal clear like jade, like a green lotus slowly blooming. Let's go, it's not interesting. Li Quanqing stood up, and the other weapon refiners also prepared to leave one by one. Li Quanqing also did not pay attention to the results of the auction. This green jade armor was forged by the 3rd elder some time ago, and it was a task given to him by the family. They didn't care, but the whole auction house was fighting for it. The eyes of those casual cultivators at the late stage of key refining and the great perfection level were all red. It is no exaggeration to say that this defensive magic weapon that looks like a full body armor is simply a second life. Put on the armor and you will be invincible at the same level. Even the cultivators from small families have joined in this madness. Everyone came to the place where the spirit stones were paid. Through the heavy walls, they could still hear the noise of the auction venue. Here are your 5 bottles of beast food pills. Please keep them. Li Quanqing was about to count them carefully when the third elder suddenly came over and handed him a dark green turtle egg. Take it, it's your 18th birthday gift. Chapter 41 Tai in Nourishing the Soul. Birthday gift? Li Quanqing was stunned when he saw the big egg of the longevity turtle in front of him. There were only 2 months left before his 18th birthday. He didn't expect that the third elder would still remember it. Why, you don't like it? Seeing that the young man didn't move, Li Quanqing looked puzzled. I heard that you prefer to raise all kinds of spiritual beast cubs. Is it wrong? I was so moved that I didn't react. Li Quanqing told the truth and held the turtle egg the size of a wash basin in his arms. Although the longevity turtle grows slowly, it's free. It smells good. Miss Quanqing, this is your 1000 lotus sword array plate. Please keep it. Quanqing, Li Quanqing. The group turned their heads, and Li Quanqing also chose to follow the crowd, and immediately saw a girl in a moon white long skirt. The skirt was white and graceful, embroidered with blooming green lotus, which set off the girl's jade bones and fairy skin. Her temperament was cold, like a deep valley orchid, independent from the world. Compared to this fairy-like aura, Li Quanqing still prefers the gentleness, virtue, and generosity of his senior sister Li Quanqiu. I was wrong. I should call her junior sister now. Hello, master, and hello, third elder. Li Quanqing also looked over here and moved lightly with lotus steps, performing a standard teacher's salute to Li Yujiao. Everyone then saw that under the gauze dress of the girl, she was actually carrying a white jade sword, which shone with a cold light. Why did you think of buying such a dilapidated formation? Even in front of her apprentice, Li Yujiao did not deliberately pretend to be majestic. She was approachable and easygoing, with a sweet smile. I saw that it was a sword formation, and I was inspired. I always felt that it was destined for me. Li Quanqing was not interested in talking. He put away the treasure, raised his steps and left. Li Quanqing and the other weapon refiners also chose to follow and leave. The voices of the master and apprentice were scattered in the wind and gradually faded away. Although the market is good, the fish pond is the real home. The spiritual boat broke through the sea surface, and Li Quanqing, exhausted, finally saw the familiar scenery. Moo. Moo. The waves surged, and 20 green jade carps surfaced. Led by Aoking, they took turns spitting water arrows. I want to turn into a dragon. Aoking, green jade carp. I haven't eaten enough and slept well during this period, and my cultivation speed has slowed down. Master, I miss you so much. Cultivation, key refining level 1, 43%. Is this the way fish welcome each other? Aoking, you have become bad too. Li Quanqing wiped the water stains on his face, spoke righteously, and rubbed the fish head angrily. Come here, everyone. Please eat delicious and fresh crab meatballs. He took out the snow white meatballs. After all, it was monster meat, and it looked very appetizing. Snap. Snap. One by one, the copper armored crab cubs poked their heads out of the bag, smelled the familiar meat fragrance, and waved their crab claws to grab the meatballs. Such a small bad crab. Aoking tilted his head, and a thoughtful look could be seen in his dead fish eyes. The other jade carps were too lazy to think so much. When they saw this kind of demon beast with big claws, they just beat it up. Pa. Pa. A stream of saliva arrows shot out of the water, splashing water droplets, and hitting the little crabs hard. But this group of copper-clad crabs deserved the title of stubborn. Even if they were against the current, they would grab the food into their mouths and eat it. You are so nauseous, but you have such a big appetite. I'm talking about you. Li Quanqing had no choice but to pick up the crab babies, place them on a reef protruding from the water, and feed them some demon beast meat. He then took out the snake eggs of the green water python. After soaking for a few days, the eggshell had become much softer. Li Quanqing held up a snake egg and looked at it in the sun. In the thick egg liquid, a slender little snake curled up, and the shape of scales could be vaguely seen. Moo. Moo. The jade carp smelled the smell and roared at the snake eggs in a vigilant manner. There were also groups of large bluefish, and their scales kept opening and closing. On the contrary, Aoking was not afraid. He looked at the crystal clear snake eggs and thought that they must taste delicious. Is a snake baby that has not yet been born so scary? Li Quanqing put the 8 snake eggs away and protected them with a formation to prevent them from being destroyed and eaten by the fish. The diet of the green water python originally contains a lot of fish. This is a stress response hidden in its bones, and it has a natural fear of predators. The final harvest is naturally the longevity turtle. How to hatch turtle eggs. I remember that turtles crawl onto the beach and bury the turtle eggs in the sand. But after all, it is a water attributed monster. Maybe it needs to be soaked in seawater all day like snake eggs. Li Quanqing's face was embarrassed. This was really his blind spot in knowledge. He temporarily put away the turtle eggs. The vitality in the eggshell was strong, so there was no problem for the time being. After finishing all the things that had piled up, Li Quanqing propped up the spirit boat and returned to the deserted fish pond in Area C. One by one, the ironbone crabs crawled from the sea to the reef, baring their teeth and claws, venting their dissatisfaction with an arrogant attitude. Ironbone crab, look at you. You haven't been fed for many days. Are you thinking of rebelling? Cultivation. Key training level 1, 8%. Your cultivation speed is so slow. I think you want to rebel. Li Quanqing was speechless. It has been almost 2 months, and the cultivation level is still in the single digit. It really chilled the cultivator. Since he already has a new favorite crab outside, these guys who eat and wait to die can only be sold. Li Quanqing made a decision in an instant. He plans to expand the size of the Qingyu carp tribe, and when the time comes, all those who are not motivated in cultivation will be thrown here. The seawater in the fish pond in Area B is not something that all fish can drink. Roll up your teeth for me. After feeding the ironbone crabs, Li Quanqing dived into the water to take a look at the stone loaches. Although these guys won't practice fast, they are easy to keep, which is worry-free, and can create spiritual stones. Let's continue to keep them. I'll throw a few hehuan pills later and try to get a few loach cubs. The stone spirit seal is quite useful and can be sold in the shop. Li Quanqing had one thought after another in his mind. It's time for this batch of green jade carp to reproduce. Inbreeding can also ensure the purity of the monster's bloodline. Get all the hehuan pills and jiaote pills for me. Unfortunately, Aoking is not very interested in female fish. When Li Quanqing returned to the fish pond in Area B, the sky was full of stars and a bright moon illuminated the world. The green jade carp, as usual, practiced by swallowing and spitting out the moonlight, and the bright moon shells also came to join in the fun. The shells reflected the moonlight and were colorful. Aoking, come over for a midnight snack. Seeing that the fish had almost finished practicing, Li Quanqing waved his hand. Moo. The jade carp rose and fell with the seawater, and the moonlight shone on the golden scales on its back, bright and dazzling. Aoking blew bubbles and looked at his master in confusion, not understanding what the midnight snack was. Li Quanqing took out the animal food pill. This is a good thing. Eating more can speed up the practice. Eat more. The other jade carp smelled the aroma of the pill and became restless, making the water boil and the waves surging. Aoking widened his eyes and let out a low roar, lashing out with his tail as big as a palm leaf fan. It is now more than 4 feet long, leading by a cliff, and can even carry a child. All the younger brothers and sisters who dared to snatch food were beaten up and whimpered in the water. Li Quanqing was surprised. After not seeing him for a few days, this guy actually had the demeanor of a fish king. After eating and drinking enough, Aoking continued to practice, and he didn't even need to sleep, and he became more and more energetic. This made a certain immortal cultivator named Li who lay flat every day feel ashamed. The night faded, the dawn was born, and the sun sank, and floated in the East China Sea. Just as Li Quanqing was about to go back to sleep, a ball of light suddenly crashed into his sight under the water. Harvest a bright moon shell in the early stage of key refining, and a gourd of Taiyin soul nourishing water as a reward. Right square bracket. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Heaven Returns to the True Man. Taiyin soul-nourishing water, extracted from the moonlight of Taiyin, dripping it on the eyes, can brighten the eyes and calm the mind, strengthen the soul, and long-term use is beneficial to the concentration of the soul. Soul? Li Quanqing widened his eyes. This is exclusive to the foundation building cultivators. The power of the soul can drill out from the Niwen Palace, silently and quietly, and spy on the world. There are 3 major difficulties for key refining cultivators to break through the foundation. The difficulty is in magic power, the difficulty is in the flesh, and the soul is difficult. If the soul is not strong enough, it is difficult to mobilize liquid magic power at the last moment to transport the body, nourish the flesh, and transform the soul. In the end, it can only be a failure. Li Quanqing put the ball of light in his hand into the storage bag, quietly shattered, and turned into dots of white light that only he could see. He thought it would be the same as the beauty-nourishing spirit mud, a yellow big-bellied gourd. Unexpectedly, the final reward was a small gourd the length of a finger. The gourd was crystal clear, looked like flawless crystal, and felt icy cold. Li Quanqing shook it a few times, and the water made a gurgling sound. It was not full at all. Damn it, the golden finger has also started to cut corners. The boy pulled out the cork and used the water control technique to take out a few drops of soul-nourishing water. It is clear in color and soft in texture. Apart from the constant emission of cool air, it is no different from dew. Li Quanqing tried to drop it in his eyes. When the water touched his eyes, he felt a stinging pain at first, and then a cool breath bloomed, flowing along the eyeballs to the depths of the brain. It was like walking into an ice house in the dog days of summer. The whole body was transparent and refreshed, and the original sleepiness and fatigue were swept away. Well, it seems that there is no need to make up for the sleep. Li Quanqing closed his eyes, as if he saw a bright moon emerging in the darkness, shining, slowly strengthening the soul. It's a bit like the visualization method in the story. I don't know if the Li family has any secret techniques for cultivating the soul. Li Quanqing opened his eyes. His eyes were clear, as if he could see through people's hearts. When the Taiyin soul-nourishing water was completely absorbed by him, even if he closed his eyes again, he could not see the bright moon. This water cannot be taken too many times. 3 or 5 times a day is enough. Moo. Aoking swam his fins in the water, looked at the jade gourd in his hand, roared, and looked eager. Do you want to drink this stuff? Li Quanqing hesitated, not knowing whether the external spiritual liquid could be taken orally. He looked at the fat and strong Gengjin carp, and finally took out a drop of Taiyin soul-nourishing water, and flicked it into the fish's mouth. Muaoking couldn't wait to smack his lips, as if he was still unsatisfied, and continued to look at him with a sob. You can't drink it anymore. Let's observe for a few days to see if you will be poisoned. Li Quanqing frowned, and took out the face of an adult scolding a child. Pa. The Gengjin carp spit out a water arrow, flicked its tail, and took his brothers to dive into the seabed, to inhale and exhale water essence to practice. The spiritual energy contained in the spirit stone can only go out but not in, but the spiritual energy in the treasure spirit pearl can be refined into its own manner, and then stored inside. It's a bit like the difference between a battery and a power bank. I heard that the Z family on Baosu Island also has a 1000-year-old spirit shell that can breed a 2nd level treasure spirit pearl. Other foundation building monks have gone through a hard battle, and their mana consumption is too huge. They are still struggling to refine the spirit stone and swallow the elixir. However, the Z family foundation building monk has taken out the treasure spirit pearl, refined it in an instant, and revived with full blood. After checking the maturity of other bright moon shells, Li Quanqing left with peace of mind. He went to the fish pond in Area C and used the fragrant bait to catch all the ironbone crabs in one net, took them all away, and went straight to Gengjin Island. Soul crabs. 23 ironbone crabs with bared teeth and claws sold a total of 95 spirit stones, completely completing their mission. Li Quanqing also bought bait and several bottles of Hehuandan, which was developed by the family and specially used for spirit fish. The effect is very strong. After the shopping, he went straight to the Li family sutra pavilion. He came to the miscellaneous book area and quickly browsed through the jade slips one by one, trying to find a few books about the breeding experience of the longevity turtle. 2 or 3 things about the longevity turtle and Xiangui Zenren, the story of the longevity turtle, the postpartum experience of turtle monsters, the complete guide to turtle monsters in the East China Sea. Li Quanqing searched through all the books about the breeding experience of turtles, but only found 2 or 3 things about the longevity turtle and Xiangui Zenren. It tells the inspirational story of the great giant and monk Xiangui Zenren, who has been dependent on a longevity turtle since childhood, and finally achieved the golden elixir after going through untold hardships. Li Quanqing glanced at it a few times, and some parts were really outrageous. For example, Xiangui Zenren had offended powerful enemies many times, dispersed his power and started over, and hid in the mortal kingdom to avoid disasters. Finally, he established his foundation at the age of 120. For a moment, he couldn't tell whether it was a real person or a vernacular novel. The chronicle of the longevity turtles is much more serious, and it records in detail the 404 families and monks who have raised longevity turtles. Among them, there is 1 longevity turtle that has achieved the golden core, 44 that have achieved the foundation establishment, and the rest have stopped at the key refining realm. Some died at the end of their lifespans and released the spirit turtles to leave before they passed away. Some longevity turtles were wiped out by the enemy before they had even grown up, and the turtles died tragically. Li Quanqing sighed and turned to the column of longevity turtles in the golden core realm, and indeed saw a familiar name. Xiangui Zenren. Could there really be such a powerful golden core master? Building the foundation at the age of 120 is too outrageous. Li Quanqing shook his head and flipped through books such as Postpartum Experience and East Sea Turtle Monster Illustrations, and finally got some clues. Longevity turtles are descendants of Zuanwu, born with a long lifespan of 10,000 years. Yin and yang are combined, movement and stillness are born, and the 2 energies of water and soil create life. Translated into plain language, the place where they are hatched needs to meet both water and soil environments. When the sun is blazing at noon, it needs to be buried in the soil to absorb the yin energy of the earth. When the night falls and the cold is too heavy, it should float on the water to absorb the clearness of the sun and the moon and the yang energy of the morning glow. Eventually, it will reach the state of yin with yang and yang with yin, and it will naturally break out of the shell. Li Quanqing thought about it. Isn't this the beach when the tide rises and falls? There is water and soil in the environment. When the tide rises, the seawater rises and floats to the surface. When the tide falls, the seawater recedes and buries in the mud. It is worthy of being a longevity turtle. It is so difficult to break a shell. If it hadn't sold itself for the sake of glory to the human race, I'm afraid it would have been exterminated by other monsters long ago. Li Quanqing put away these jade slips, thought about it, and then wandered around the magic area. With the family competition approaching, he thought it would be better to play it safe and learn a few more spells. Chapter 43 Water Element Shield. Li Quanqing shuttled through the spell area, dazzled by the sight, and finally locked his target on water spells. This was the area he was most familiar with, and with a superb water control technique, it was easy to get started. First, a defensive spell. Water Spirit Shield, Water Mirror, Water Element Cover. Li Quanqing compared them, and finally chose the top grade spell Water Element Cover. This spell can protect the whole body without leaving any dead corners, and its grade is extremely high, making it the best choice. Then an offensive one. There are more choices for offensive spells, and even a lot of ice spells are included. The white jade slips feel cold when touched. Suddenly, Li Quanqing saw a very exciting spell. Water Dragon Technique. He touched the water dragon pendant on his waist, feeling particularly predestined, and also grabbed the water blue jade slip in his hand. Fourth Elder, I've chosen it. Holding a pile of jade slips, the young man came to the elders guarding the Sutra library. The fourth elder is called Li Zongzhuo, who is over 100 years old, and is of the same generation as the Li clan leader, the foundation building cultivator Li Zongzhuo. He looks old and grey, like an old pine tree lying on the stone turtle sculpture lazily basking in the sun. 5 jade slips of miscellaneous books, 10 points of family contribution, 2 top grade spells, and 130 points of family contribution. Li Zongsuo patted the stone turtle statue. Old rules. Bring over the identity jade card. Li Quanqing swiped the jade card, and the contribution points were deducted instantly, which still made him feel a little distressed. The fourth elder opened his eyes slightly. Under the layers of wrinkles, his old eyes were not cloudy at all, but wise and bright. You raised a longevity turtle? Li Quanqing was stunned for a moment, nodded. I got a turtle egg, and I'm learning how to hatch it. Not bad, not bad. The family still has no records in this regard. When you raise the longevity turtle, remember to write a book of experience and put it in the sutra library. The old man glanced at the young man and suddenly laughed again. But according to the nature of the longevity turtle, maybe it will take care of you in your old age and see you to the end. Li Quanqing. In order to avoid the tragedy of one turtle passing down 3 generations and the turtle dies, Li Quanqing thinks that it's better to make the green jade carps in the fish pond suffer a little more. Hey, come and eat. The young man in green robe stood on the lotus platform, holding a large iron spoon in his hand, waving his sleeves, and large pieces of fish bait fell on the water like drizzle. True. The god who controls the spoon in the fish pond. As the eldest, Aoking was naturally the first to enjoy the delicious food. It swallowed a few big mouthfuls, and suddenly felt something was wrong, with doubts written in its clear fish eyes. Why does today's meal taste weird? The golden carp swallowed a few more big mouthfuls, and as the bait was digested in its stomach, a hot current flowed through its body, and its head was hot and dizzy. Of course the taste is different. Someone specially added a secret recipe to the bait. Fish water harmony pill. As an adult fish, it should be full and warm, and think about sex. The other jade carps have eaten the desire pill and have begun to be impatient to stick to it. After eating, Aoking only wanted to practice, or fucking practice. Is the physique of the golden patent alien so good? This has no effect. Li Quanqing looked speechless. In fact, Aoking swallowed and exhaled the moonlight day and night to practice, and his physique was cold. Now with the help of Jiaote Yang Qi, yin and yang are harmonized. Practice is more motivated. The sun in the west has not completely sunk into the sea level, and Aoking can't wait to start swallowing and exhaling the essence between heaven and earth. Li Quanqing was helpless. It seemed that he would not be able to obtain the direct bloodline descendant of the golden pattern alien species. He took out the stone spirit seal and began to transform the terrain of the fish pond, merging several reefs into a whole slope, with the top sunken in, and the seawater ebb and flow. Li Quanqing took out the longevity turtle egg and buried it in the mud and sand piled in this depression. These mud and sands are not only common sea sand, but also mixed with the green spirit mud of Yulangton. The spiritual energy is dense and the water essence is abundant. You must break out of the shell quickly and see this wonderful world as soon as possible. Li Quanqing patted the turtle egg and murmured in a low voice, and then said the same thing to the snake egg of the green water python. The main point is to treat the water equally. Swish. A snake egg swayed gently in the spiritual liquid for a few times, as if it really believed it and couldn't wait to come into the world. Sure enough, communicating with the monster eggs frequently can speed up growth and help the cubs break out of the shell as soon as possible. Turtle monster postpartum experience is true. Da da da. Fist-sized copper-clad crabs went out to look for food, their eyes rolling and their claws waving. Their shells were dyed golden by the orange sunset, and their shadows stretched very long on the reef. Are you hungry? You can eat more than those iron-boned idiots. Li Quanqing first took out a crab meatball for testing. The crab cubs smelled the familiar meaty aroma and immediately caused a commotion, but they finally held back. You've learned your lesson. Not bad. It seems that those days of hunger were not in vain, and you deserve a reward. Li Quanqing stretched out his fingers, rubbed the crab heads one by one, and took out the remaining demon transforming insects to feed them. Slurp. The spirit crabs seemed to like eating this stuff very much. The little copper-clad crabs lined up and took turns to come forward and tear off the thin meat strips from the insects with their claws. Then, just like eating spicy strips, they opened and closed their mouthparts, held the meat strips in their mouths, and swallowed them into their stomachs, revealing a very happy mood. Some crabs don't know how to eat, and they bite off halfway. Immediately, brothers and sisters who are eager to eat come up to grab the food. It's quite interesting to watch. The sound of waves is endless, the bright moon is in the sky, and the silver silk is like a veil, shining on the East China Sea for billions of miles. With the cool moonlight covering the fish pond, Li Quanqing dripped 2 more drops of soul-nourishing water, silently experiencing the refreshing feeling of the soul growing stronger. King moaned softly, and the fish fins tapped the water surface. The seawater splashed on the reef and wet the corners of his clothes. I want to turn into a dragon, King. Green jade carp. It's the fragrance of Taiyin turning into a dragon. I want to eat it. If you don't give it to me, I will spit for you to see. Li Quanqing hit the carp's head hard, which was really against the will of heaven. In the end, he still fed it 2 drops. There was no way, because King was his favorite fish. The soul was nourished by the spiritual liquid, and the mind was clear for a while. Li Quanqing took this opportunity to take out 2 magic jade slips and comprehend them one by one. Water element cover. After comprehending for an unknown period of time, he pinched his hands and suddenly released a stream of magic power, manipulating the seawater around him to surge in turbid waves. Water spouts as thick as bowls flew out of the sea, intertwined with each other, and finally turned into a blue water wave cover covering the whole body. Pa. 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 At Li Quanqing's signal, the green jade carps excitedly spit out water arrows and hit the surface of the water element cover fiercely. Crackling. After persisting for a whole stick of incense, Li Quanqing felt that the magic power was running obscurely, and the water element cover turned into a waterfall again. It's easier than I thought. Li Quanqing breathed in and out, meditated to restore his magic power, and felt that it was very easy to get started with this spell. It should be because of the water control technique, which is the basis of all water magic, and I have practiced it to perfection. Li Quanqing curled his lips and continued to comprehend the contents of the water element cover jade slip. To achieve minor success in this magic, you need to condense 3 layers of water wave covers, and the major success level requires 9 layers of water covered defense. It's like a lotus bud about to bloom, peeling off one layer after another. This special structure reminded him of the Li family's top grade magic weapon, the green jade armor. It also has 9 layers of scales combined into one, with invincible defense. The Li family's inheritance seems to be scattered and disorganized, but it actually has a vein. The skills, refining, magic, seem to be passed down from one vein, like a part of a profound inheritance. Li Quanqing was not surprised. Their ancestors were pioneers who were able to establish a foundation and gain a foothold in the crisis-ridden East China Sea. At least they had some skills. After practicing for a night, Li Quanqing already had a clue about how to condense the second layer of water element cover. The sun rises in the east, and heaven and earth are in harmony. It was the time when everything was full of vigor and vitality. 2 moon shells matured one after another, and the light balls were alluring. Harvest a moon shell in the early stage of key refining, and reward a medium grade magic weapon water repellent bead. Harvest a moon shell in the early stage of key refining, and reward a medium grade treasure spirit bead. Right square bracket. Chapter 44. Snake eggs hatch. Points of light bloomed, and finally turned into 2 round and flawless beads, 1 blue and 1 white. Water repellent beads, a medium grade magic weapon. Holding it can walk underwater, and the raging waves are like walking on flat ground. It has a certain weakening effect on water-based spells. Li Quanqing first took out the water repellent beads, which were about the size of a longan seed, pure blue in color, and glassy like jade. Using magic power to activate it, a circle of light instantly bloomed on the surface of the beads, like an invisible piece of clothing wrapped around the whole body. Crash. The vast sea was surging, and Li Quanqing tried the effect of the water repellent beads, jumped directly into the seawater, and dived deep into the water. Breathing, he tried to let go of his breath, and found that it really worked. He could breathe freely underwater and was safe. Moo. Li Quanqing stretched out his arms and legs, activated his magic power, and shuttled underwater like a swift big fish. The green jade carps flew up and down around him, constantly touching him with their fins and scales, and for the first time looked at each other from an equal perspective. The boy swam a long circle in the fish pond, dancing with the fish, and walking with the spirit crabs, feeling more relaxed than ever before. Without the help of skills and external objects, he needs to break through the foundation building realm, to complete his internal circulation. Eating clouds and air, practicing fasting and cultivating immortality, walking freely under the water. Before, he had to surface from time to time to breathe when he dived under the water. Now he feels as if he has really become a creature in the water, wandering around freely under the water, and can better observe the growth of the spirit beasts. Not bad, it's a good treasure. Li Quanqing swam back to the reef, put away the water repellent beads, and began to look at another treasure. Baolingsu. Li Quanqing has heard of the name of this kind of bead many times, but now is the first time he has touched it with his own hands. Baolingsu is much larger in size, comparable to lychee, white and bright, with 5 color light flowing faintly, which is extraordinary. However, no matter how Li Quanqing looks at it, he thinks that this thing looks similar to a spirit stone, but it has been carefully polished by the bright moon shell. He sensed it, and found that the spiritual energy contained in the beads was roughly between that of a cultivator at the 4th and 5th levels of key refining. This was based on his own manner as a reference. If it was a top level technique, it would probably be less. With such abundant spiritual energy, can I absorb several precious spirit beads at once, to break through the bottleneck? Li Quanqing suddenly had an idea. Cultivators are often stuck in bottlenecks, because of insufficient mana. After the precious spirit beads are refined, they are equivalent to an external danshan, which can instantly gush out all the mana. It's very interesting. When all the bright moon shells are mature, if there are enough precious spirit beads, let's give it a try. With the family competition approaching, Li Quanqing felt that his cultivation at the 5th level of key refining was still not stable. Unfortunately, the big black carp suffered heavy losses due to the previous insect plague, and the 3rd batch of green jade carp were still in their mother's belly as eggs. It was too late to rely on the spiritual energy group to break through. I didn't expect that. After lying flat for so long, I still have to rely on myself to roll it up. Li Quanqing stuffed 2 spirit stones into the body of the mature moon shell. I rolled it up like this myself. You all need to work harder. Rolling together, it's the real roll. 1 month later, 100 miles away from Kingpin Island, in a remote sea area. Water dragon technique. Li Quanqing held the water dragon pendant in his hand, and his magic power surged, pouring all into it. Roar! Exclamation mark. With the faint dragon roar, a water dragon emerged from the jade pendant, and rushed into the sea like a blue stream of light. Waves rushed up to the sky, and merged into the body of the water dragon, and finally turned into a giant 10 feet long, with scales and armor, lifelike. Li Quanqing held the water dragon pendant, and strands of magic power maintained the existence of the water dragon. He fired whatever he wanted and pointed at it. So this is how this spell is cast. Li Quanqing manipulated the huge body of the water dragon to surround the spirit boat, and personally touched and felt it with his hands. The water in the water dragon's body was not stagnant water, but was constantly flowing. Undercurrents surged, and the magic power pulled, interweaving into runes like veins, which could burst out with amazing power and strength in an instant. This is the mystery of the water dragon technique. Simply condensing the sea water into a dragon shape, and throwing it out can only be said to be a water ball technique in a different form. Water dragon technique. Li Quanqing pinched his fingers and cast a spell, trying to cast this spell. The water flow swirled and gathered in front of him, slowly taking shape, and turned into a huge water dragon of 5 or 6 meters. Although the appearance was a bit rough, and the details such as the dragon scales were almost invisible, the power was real. Bang! Exclamation mark. The water dragon swung its tail and crashed directly into several submarine reefs, rumbling, exploding with water splashes all over the sky, and the reefs collapsed directly. It's quite powerful. Li Quanqing was quite satisfied as he watched the rocks flying everywhere, the sea surging and boiling, and the sea surface covering a radius of dozens of feet. He shook the jade pendant in his hand, cut off the magic power, and slowly dispersed the mighty water dragon, and returned it to the sea. He didn't dare to really release this powerful force that was comparable to a blow from the 9th level of key refining. This place was too close to the Qinghai Islands. Just talking about that kind of movement, it might attract the investigation of the strong people in the family. After a month of hard training, he had comprehended the 2 top grade spells and barely achieved a small success. This speed was already fast. The waves hit the bottom of the boat, and Li Quanqing drove the spirit boat back. Unexpectedly, there was a guest visiting outside the fish pond, waiting for him. It was a woman with a cold temperament, wearing a moon-white lotus skirt, with picturesque eyebrows and eyes, carrying a long sword on her back, and exuding a misty fairy spirit all over her body. It was Li Quanqing. "Hello, sister." Li Quanqing nodded. His attitude was neither cold nor warm. "This is the beauty-enhancing spiritual mud I made last time. Bring me the new mud shell." Li Quanqing handed over a big-bellied bottle, speaking lightly, with a blurred look in her eyes, as if she was thinking about something. "Okay." Li Quanqing took the big-bellied bottle, took out the mud shell shed by the stone spirit loach, and handed it to the other party. The girl hummed, took the mud shell, stepped on a spiritual boat and left, dressed in white. From beginning to end, the two did not say anything extra, just nodding to each other. "I can take it to the shop to sell spiritual stones again." Li Quanqing looked at the beauty-enhancing spiritual mud and smiled. During this period, his shop in Beijing was officially opened. The name was very straightforward, just called Quanqing Pavilion, and he was too lazy to think about it. Li Quanfu came from time to report to him, the hands-off shopkeeper. With the name of King Li's endorsement, plus the care of the 4th Aunt Li Yujiao, it did attract a group of customers. But the best-selling thing was not the magic weapon, but this ordinary beauty-enhancing spiritual mud. Moo. Moo. Ao King surfaced, followed by his younger brothers, blowing bubbles and begging for food. Nearly 100 fry of green jade carp formed a school of fish, so cute that they even dared to compete with Ao King for food. The second batch of green jade carp gave birth to fish pups one after another. However, with the spiritual energy and area of the fish pond, it is definitely impossible to raise all of them, so we can only choose the best. After feeding the fish and iron bone crabs, it was already noon. Li Quanqing felt a little tired, and was about to sit down and rest when he suddenly heard a very subtle collision sound. Bang bang bang, could it be? Li Quanqing's eyes lit up, and he hurried to check. Sure enough, he saw a snake egg shaking constantly and about to hatch. Snap! Exclamation mark. Finally, the eggshell broke, and a blue little snake poked its head out and breathed the first breath of fresh air in its life. The green water python cub is so beautiful, with a round and cute head and gradient snake scales that are as crystal as jade, reflecting the shimmering light in the sun. Its eyes were big, and the color of its pupils was like emeralds. It tilted its head and looked at Li Quanqing in a cute and cunning way, just like a kitten. Curious cub, green water python. It just broke out of the shell so beautifully. Maturity 3%. Chapter 45 Breakthrough. Crack, crack. The eggshell broke into pieces, and the green water python finally got out of it intact. His Li Quanqing stretched out his finger, and the little snake wrapped around him directly, spitting out its pink and tender tongue, acting cute. It must be very hungry just after being born. Let's eat first. Li Quanqing took out the childlike food that he had prepared long ago and squeezed it into his palm. This is a mixture of milk, eggs, and monster meat, rich in nutrition, and most suitable for newborn monster babies. The green water python tilted its head, and its nose moved, as if it smelled the smell of food, and it crawled over and started to swallow it. Happy green water python, who knows? Family members, this is the first time a snake has eaten. It's so delicious that it's screaming. Although the snake baby is small, it has a big appetite and gets sleepy when it is full. The little green water python swam into the water along his arm, climbed on the green lotus leaf to take a nap, and its tail dangled in the water. This kind of monster is naturally close to the sea, and most of the time it has to soak in the water to absorb the essence of water to practice. Li Quanqing took out the array plate and guarded the fish pond, leaving space for the spirit snake to grow. He checked the remaining snake eggs, which were very close to hatching in the next few days. Boss, I'm here. A familiar call came into his ears, and a fishing boat was riding the wind and waves. It was Li Quanqing who arrived, with a plump figure. Quanqing, you came at the right time. Li Quanqing took out a big-bellied bottle. This is the beauty-enhancing spiritual mud that Li Quanqing just sent. It's just right to sell it in the shop. Li Quanqing nodded, took out a cloth bag, and smiled. Boss, this is the profit of our Quanqing pavilion last month. A total of 40 spirit stones, all here. Considering the good location of Quanqing pavilion, these spirit stones are a bit low. But considering that it has just opened, it is understandable. Li Quanqing took out a pile of jade bottles again. This is the spiritual pill that Onchujio asked me to give you. 4 dragon scale grass, a total of 24 bottles of pills. You call me so close. The relationship is really good. You are worthy of it. Li Quanqing gave a thumbs up. With his personality, he naturally couldn't be so smooth. Li Quanqing smiled innocently, his eyes narrowed into a slit. I have been liked by these aunts since I was a child. When they see my rosy round face, they naturally feel close and festive. This is also your ability. Li Quanqing praised, and took out 5 spirit stones from the cloth bag. Here, your wages for this month. Take it. This is too much, brother king. Li Quanqing waved his hand hurriedly, not daring to accept it. He felt that he didn't do much work. 90% of the goods and magic tools in those shops were low-grade magic tools refined by Li Quanqing himself. The salary of 5 spirit stones was really too much. Take it if it's given to you. There will be many places where you can be used in the future. Li Quanqing didn't care about these and forced it over. After the wages are paid, go buy some spiritual food and wine and visit your grandfather more. I know it without you telling me, brother. Li Quanqing nodded, his round face smiled, and said goodbye and left. Ayo king, get up and take the medicine. Li Quanqing poured out a dragon scale pill. The pill was dark red in color, and purple patterns extended from the surface, like the scales of a python. A strange and bizarre smell emanated, spicy and pungent, causing many green jade carps and big black fish to become agitated. Is the temptation so strong? Li Quanqing looked at the boiling water. The fish swam towards him frantically, the turbid waves rolled, and the bamboo greenbacks filled his sight. It was unbearable to bear the attraction of the pill fragrance. Moo. Ayo King made an angry low moan, and his 5-foot-long body stirred up the wind and waves. He looked more and more majestic and prominent. The broad back with golden patterns was hidden under the water. If you didn't look carefully, you would think there was a dragon lurking, and the green scales were as scary as armor. After beating up his stupid brothers and sisters, Ayo King swam over happily. His eyes were cute, and he was crying for food. I want to turn into a dragon, jade carp. I'm so happy. There's something new and delicious. The state of everything competing to turn into a dragon is right before my eyes. Cultivation. Key refining level 1, 98%. Your cultivation has improved very quickly. It seems that the bottle of animal food pill was not wasted. Li Quanqing was looking forward to the dragon scale pill and fed one directly. AWW the golden patterned green carp swallowed the pill, but was still not satisfied and continued to open its mouth. The boy found it funny and ejected a few drops of Taiyin soul nourishing water before sending the greedy guy away. As the night fell, the fish pond was filled with moonlight as usual, spreading in all directions. Li Quanqing dropped the soul nourishing water into his eyes, regulated his breathing, calmed his mind, and slowly entered into a state of concentration. But the darkness in front of him was dispelled, and he saw the bright moon of the Taiyin rising slowly again, holy and shining on the universe. He had seen such a scene too many times. What was on that moon? Suddenly, an idea came to Li Quanqing's mind. So, his thoughts began to rise continuously, as if he was flying into the sky, chasing the moon. Unfortunately, the moon was always not far from him, as if the moon was also moving as he rose. Just when he was about to give up, a very subtle sound of dripping sounded, like raindrops falling on his face. The sound became louder and louder, and finally turned into the sound of thunderous waves, clattering in the sky and on the ground. Li Quanqing then realized that he had unknowingly stood on an endless sea, with turbulent waves under his feet. The moon was hanging high, and the moon was bright in the sea. All the scenes shattered with a sound, leaving only a little sound of waves in his ears. Li Quanqing opened his eyes, still a little shocked. Was it the moon rising from the sea, or was it the wrong direction from the beginning, and the moon was caught in the water, but it was out of sight? Li Quanqing shook his head, too lazy to think so much. He had more important things to do. Fishing for the light balls. The boy took out the water repellent beads, and held them in his mouth, dived into the sea, and took up the last few light balls of mature moon shells. Harvest a moonlight shell in the early stage of key refining, and reward a gourd of Tei and soul nourishing water. Harvest a moonlight shell in the early stage of key refining, and reward a middle grade magic weapon water repellent bead. Harvest a moonlight shell in the early stage of key refining, and reward a middle grade magic weapon water repellent bead. All 30 moonlight shells have entered the key refining stage, and a total of 2 water repellent beads, 8 treasure spirit beads, and 20 bottles of Tei and soul nourishing water have been harvested. Enough for the foundation building. It's a pity that no new rewards have been opened. It's time to break through. Li Quanqing took out all the treasure spirit beads, and they were shining brightly, illuminating the 4 directions. He picked up one and began to refine it, and transformed the spirit bead into a special power bank with his own magic power. This process naturally has losses. In the end, the magic power contained in a treasure spirit bead should be comparable to that of a cultivator at the 4th level of key refining. The red sun rises in the east, the cold moon in the west is about to end, and the stars in the sky are looming. Purple hair covered the sea, the heaven and earth were in harmony, and everything was full of vitality. It was the best time to practice. Spiritual beads, help me. Li Quanqing concentrated his mind and calmed his breath. His posture was majestic and immovable, as if he had merged with the sea, following the laws of nature. The 8 precious spiritual beads were located in all directions, and suddenly activated. The magic power rolled like a tide, swallowed along the meridians, rushed straight to the Danshan, and broke it with force. Boom! Exclamation mark. Chapter 46, Foundation Building. Boom! Exclamation mark. The mana surged like a flood that had been opened, rushing freely through the meridians. Li Quanqing tried his best to refine and integrate it, and found it much easier than before, and he could manipulate it, as if he had used his arm. It's because the soul has become stronger. He immediately understood the reason, and breathed a sigh of relief. This was the first time he tried to actively attack the bottleneck after crossing over, and he was very nervous. Now he was fully confident. Boom. The mana surged and attacked the bottleneck, and nothing could stop it. Li Quanqing sat cross-legged on the lotus platform, and his body suddenly trembled, and his powerful momentum soared into the sky. He stirred the world with his own ki, and the spiritual energy in the sky was attracted, and sank directly into the Danshan along the sky spirit bone. With the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the Danshan ki sea became stronger and stronger, and the sticky mist-like mana vortex rotated quietly, and it returned to calm again. 6th level of ki refining. The young man opened his eyes, his dark eyes were shining, and 2 streams of light shot out from his pupils, which dissipated after a long time. It's not that difficult, Li Quanqing said. Puff, puff, puff. All around, the 8 precious spirit beads exploded, and turned into powder, floating and scattering in the sea water with the wind. It was so smooth. In addition to the soul being nourished and strengthened, the strength of the physical body also accounted for a large part of the reason. My body refining practice has been stagnant for a long time. The boy looked at the surface of the reef in the distance, and the copper-armored crabs gathered together to watch the excitement. He felt that his body refining skills might have to fall on them. The Li family's Sutra Pavilion only has one the true body of 100 beasts, which can be said to be the most widely circulated body refining method in the East China Sea. Draw the essence and blood of the monsters to practice. The more monsters you kill, the heavier the blood and evil spirit on your body, and the easier it is to break through the advanced realm. If you kill 100,000 kinds of monsters, you can even condense the dharma of all beasts, move mountains and seas with a wave of your hand, and amaze the world. Unfortunately, the cultivators who practice the true body of 100 beasts will exude an aura that monsters hate. It is very unfavorable to raise fish, so you can only give up. Li Quanqing moved his hands and feet, and felt more powerful than ever before as his magic power surged. The 6th level of key refining, was considered a strong man among casual cultivators, and he had considerable fame. Even in the Qingyu Li family, this level of cultivation was enough to serve as a family steward. The leaders of dozens of branches of the Li family were generally only at the 7th level of key refining, and they were all in their 40s or 50s. If they could break through to the 8th level of key refining, they would be great, and they would be able to serve as family elders with idle positions. The 9th level of key refining was the real elder, holding the power of a region. As for the great perfection of key refining, there were only a dozen of them in the entire Li family, all of whom were powerful figures. Li Quanqing had a little fantasy, and he could start preparing for his dream of becoming the master of the Spirit Island. Moo. The water splashed everywhere, and Aoking chased the spiritual energy that escaped between heaven and earth, swallowing it in big mouthfuls, and suddenly let out a low roar. The aura on its body surged, and it suddenly broke through to a new realm, with blazing flames in its eyes and high morale. Key refining level 2. What an inspiring green jade carp. Li Quanqing looked at the other green jade carps who were just eating and drinking and playing around, and felt really disappointed. He took out a dragon scale pill, and fed it to Aoking, rubbed the warm fish head, and looked forward to this guy breaking through the middle stage of key refining as soon as possible. If nothing unexpected happens, there will also be a light ball reward at that time. Li Quanqing, the family refiner assessment, passed. In the refinery hall, the lively scene of the past reappeared, and everyone spoke, congratulating the girl in the aqua blue dress. Congratulations, junior sister, the refinement is finally completed. Li Quanqing was also there, standing in front, with a very sincere smile on his face. But the two words junior sister, that were deliberately emphasized, made people's teeth itch. This guy, doesn't he know how to give in to the girl? Li Quanqing wanted to smash the kingly sword in his hand on that handsome face. Junior sister, it's time to go to the family market, to sell this magic weapon. Li Quanlin was also there and reminded him. Li Quanqing looked around at everyone, and made a surprising decision. She handed the kingly sword directly to someone. Senior brother, I'll sell it to you. She also wanted to cling to the thigh of the third elder, and was too lazy to go to the family market, so as not to accidentally offend the powerful elder behind a certain shop owner. What the hell? Li Quanqing looked at the magic weapon that almost hit his face, and his originally cheerful and sunny smile froze. Oh, good things come in pairs. Junior brother is blessed. Li Quanlin didn't mind the big deal at all. As soon as he opened his mouth, he was a fun-loving person, and he looked like a single dog jumping up and down. The other disciples of the weapon hall also made a fuss when they saw that there was something exciting to watch. In the end, Li Quanqing bought the sword, and the spirit stone was regarded as a gift to the girl. All gone, all gone. With nothing to watch, the disciples immediately dispersed in 2s and 3s, returning to the peace of the past. Li Quanqing put away his playful smile, and clenched his fists until they cracked. Brother, why did you join in the fun just now? Of course I was creating opportunities for you. When you reach your age, you will know how difficult it is to meet the right person. Li Quanlin was not very scared at first, and he kept talking. Until Li Quanqing stopped hiding the fluctuations of his magic power, he was immediately scared. Refine, refine, refine. 6th level of key refining. When did you break through, brother? I just broke through last month. Brother, do you want to try my magic to see if it's strong? Brother, I know I was wrong. I surrender. Li Quanlin admitted his defeat neatly, and looked up and down at the boy, as if he was looking at a monster. Brother, are you really not a top grade spiritual root? He couldn't help asking. This cultivation speed was too fast, so fast that it was abnormal. Of course this kid doesn't have a top grade spiritual root, but he could be. A burly figure came over, walking like a dragon and a tiger. It was Li Quanli. Meet the Hall Master. After the greeting, Li Quanqing's heart moved slightly. The Hall Master means, while your reputation is not big enough, change the family files, and you will become a top grade water spiritual root. Li Quanli spread his palms and smiled. It's very simple. Next to him, Li Quanlin was very excited. Junior brother, how about we change it? They all knew that the young man must have his own opportunities, but they didn't have greed in their hearts. Everyone has their own destiny. In the eyes of the two, Li Quanqing is just a junior with great potential. It is enough to just think about him sincerely. Li Quanqing hesitated for a moment and cupped his hands. What do you think, Hall Master? Li Quanqing did not answer, but talked about other things. Top grade spiritual roots are rare and have huge potential. Even in the giant sect, they are foundation building seeds. There are only 3 in the entire Li family. The old man bent his fingers and began to count. Li Quanqing of your generation, my brother Li Quanqing, and there is another one. He straightened his back, stretched out his fingers to himself, and smiled proudly. I, your Hall Master, have a top grade Lihuo spiritual root. The Hall Master is wise and powerful. The two of them flattered him at the right time, having already figured out the third elder's temperament. Senior brother Li Quanqing heard puzzled. Excuse me, Hall Master, as a foundation building cultivator, doesn't the clan leader have top grade spiritual roots? They originally had a Zhang generation, but unfortunately he died in an accident. In the end, it was the clan leader Li Zhangao who had middle grade water spiritual roots who took over. That was the most turbulent time for our Li family. The foundation building cultivators were very old, and there was no one available in the younger generation. The enemy was eyeing them covetously, and the formations were roaring day and night. In the end, the clan leader rose at an astonishing speed, quickly building the foundation before the enemy could react, and successfully completed the transition from the old to the new. Li Quanqing looked at the young man. Do you know how old the clan leader was when he built his foundation? How old? 35? 40? The two looked at each other and tried to guess the smallest possible number. All wrong. He's 28. He's claimed to be 35. Li Quanqing was amazed. A foundation building cultivator who's less than 30 years old and has a mid-grade water spirit root. This is the heritage of our Qingyu Li family. The rising tide of the blue sea. The rising tide of the blue sea. The Li family has a rare treasure that can allow cultivators who have reached the great perfection of key refining to have the combat power of foundation building. This is limited to cultivators with water spirit roots who practice the rising tide of the blue sea. This is the real heritage of 1,000 years. Therefore, the Li family has produced several evil spirits with water spirit roots in history. Although Li Quanqing's cultivation speed is fast, it is barely acceptable to outsiders. Moreover, a fast key refining speed does not mean that one can build a foundation. Without foundation building pills and foundation building spiritual objects, there are many genius cultivators who have died at this stage. Chapter 47, Spirit Stones. Top grade spiritual roots. A tall tree attracts the wind, and it is easy to encounter accidents. Li Quanqing understood a little. It is better to show people a middle grade spiritual root, which is upright. Li Quanqing scratched his head. So the family files will not be changed? Why not? If the files are not changed, why did I say so much? Li Quanqing looked at a fool. Top grade spiritual roots are too conspicuous, so we will change it in another way. For example, change Quanqing's low grade gold spiritual roots to middle grade ones. Gold and water are combined, and my Li family is good at waterways and has abundant resources. The speed of cultivation is comparable to that of top grade water spiritual roots. You can also change your age to a few years older and report yourself as being in your early 20s when you go out. This way, it is more real and credible. Li Quanqing nodded repeatedly after hearing it. Good method. I have always paid attention to the age aspect and never told outsiders when I go out. You kid is cautious enough, and you have a bit of my style back then. Li Quanqing gave him 2 files with encouraging eyes. This is the information you left in the family. I took it out specially. Tell me how you want to change it. One file was a record of Li Quanqing's childhood, and the other was a blank file with nothing written on it. Li Quanqing, 12 years old, from Qingpan Island, father Li Yuping, mother Li Yuru, both are Li family key refining cultivators. The middle grade water spiritual root is 3 inches and 7 points high, the low grade gold spiritual root is 2 inches and 3 points high, and the rest of the spiritual roots are less than 1 inch. The classification of spiritual roots is based on the height of the glow of the spiritual platform. Less than 1 inch is inferior, 13 inches is inferior, 35 inches is medium, 57 inches is superior, and 79 inches is earth spiritual root. The heavenly spiritual root is not only 9 inches high, but also has a heavenly spiritual energy in the body, which can assist cultivators in forming golden elixir. Li Quanqing made a big stroke and directly changed it to 4.7 inches for water spiritual root and 4.3 inches for gold spiritual root, which is definitely middle to upper. Seeing this, Li Quanqing couldn't help but laugh. These two kinds of spiritual roots are exactly 9 inches together, and my junior brother has become a natural spiritual root now. Of course, the first golden elixir master of our Li family in the future must be me. Li Quanqing laughed and said this shamelessly. Seeing that there was no problem, the third elder's palm was blazing with flames, and he directly burned the old files to ashes. I have confirmed that the family steward who measured your spiritual roots has passed away, so there is no big flaw. Li Quanqing has always been very careful in doing things. The family competition will be held in 8 months. How are you preparing? After asking this, he couldn't help laughing. There are only a few people in the entire Quan generation who have the 6th level of key refining, and they were all seeds for winning in previous competitions. The third elder took out a storage bag. Take it, your family salary for the past 3 months, a total of 32 spirit stones. Li Quanqing opened the bag and was almost blinded by the light. Why are there so many? There were densely packed, at least 8 or 900 spirit stones. Because there are salaries for other clansmen. The old man smiled and took out a roll of roster. This time, you are responsible for the distribution of family salaries on Kingpin Island. Thank you for your hard work. Li Quanqing was stunned. Isn't this the job of a family steward? When you have reached a certain level of cultivation, you will naturally begin to take on responsibilities. The third elder patted the boy on the shoulder and encouraged him. Go, let the clansmen see the name of the genius of our weapon refining hall. Li Quanqing had a bitter face, picked up the storage bag, and rushed towards Kingpin Island. The spirit boat broke through the sea, and the boy took out the roster, and looked at them one by one. Almost all of them were acquaintances, and he easily found a place to live. He soon discovered that distributing salaries was indeed a lucrative job. Some people have just broken through a small realm, and it stands to reason that their salaries should be doubled, but he has not yet registered in the Changqing Palace. There is a lot of room for manipulation here, and there are huge kickbacks. Li Quanqing looked down on this little spiritual sand and stone, and took a business-like attitude, just to show his face. Many familiar neighbors were indeed surprised. How come the orphan of Yoru's family became the family steward in a blink of an eye? This is the family. Li Quanqing exhaled a breath of turbid air, knowing that the whole master wanted to build momentum for him. Being in the family, it is impossible to be self-sufficient. You need to build your own team step by step, and hold the power alone. The sea water was rustling, the blue sea and blue sky, the white clouds were leisurely, and the spiritual boat arrived at an extremely familiar fish pond. Kinga, how come you have time to come to the old man today? Li Quanqing smiled and smoked a dry pipe. The smoke was faint, and his expression was very comfortable. I came to give this quarter's salary to Uncle 19. Oh, it's incredible. In a blink of an eye, Kinga will become a big man. The old man smiled exaggeratedly, with a very good mentality. Although he was close to 100 years old, he was still as healthy as a young man. Li Quanqing was joking around when he saw a familiar figure in the depths of the fish pond, clumsily fishing for big black carps. The big black carps were struggling in the fishing net, making the water boil, and they opened their mouths to spit out dense water arrows, making the man very embarrassed. It turns out that this kid is helping my uncle. The man in the fish pond was his cousin Li Quanqing. His mother begged the old man, and I saw that he was indeed a promising talent, so I reluctantly accepted him as an apprentice. Li Quanqing knocked the dry pipe in his hand and shouted, "As who? Your brother is here to see you." Li Quanqing was obviously stunned for a while, and then he hesitated, and came over with the fishing net, and reluctantly called out, "Quanqing, cousin. The third level of key refining, your cultivation is not slow. I just came from your mother, she didn't tell me this." Li Quanqing took out 2 spirit stones. The salary for the third level of key refining is 4 spirit stones. I will make up for the shortfall. Thank you, brother. Looking at the white spirit stones, Li Quanqing's call was much more natural. I had a lucky breakthrough 2 days ago, but I didn't have time to tell her. The boy stretched out his much rougher palm to take the spirit stone. It has been a while since I last saw him. This kid has grown a little taller and a little tanned. Just like a reef beaten by the waves, there is less childishness and rebelliousness between his eyebrows, and a lot more stability. To put it simply, he has grown up. Have you heard from your father recently? After a moment of silence, Li Quanqing brought up the topic. Li Quanzu shook his head, looking slightly bewildered. At the beginning, Li Yuheng took 2,000 spirit stones and said that he was going to the Jiandan market to find a spirit pill that could regenerate broken limbs, but he never heard from him again. He didn't even pay back the spirit stones he owed. Before the exact news is passed back to the clan, I will ensure that my uncle's annual tribute is paid to my aunt on time. Li Quanqing made his own promise. Li Quanzu's expression finally relaxed. His eyebrows were full of joy, and his eyes were curved with joy. He finally looked a little like the high-spirited middle school boy he used to be. When Li Quanqing returned to his own fish pond, the sky was already full of red clouds, and the songs of the fishermen and farmers who were leaving for home could be vaguely heard, and the fishing boats were singing in the evening. "I'm back," he roared as usual, but he didn't see the spirit beasts lining up to welcome him. Only a few big bluefish poked their heads out and lazily spit arrows of saliva at him. What are these guys doing together? Li Quanqing stepped on the lotus platform, his clothes fluttering, like a banished immortal walking on the waves, feeling very free and easy. He found that the green jade carps surrounded a large reef, 8 aquatic green water pythons were also there, and the golden copper-shelled crabs occupied another area. This seems to be the place where the longevity turtles were hatched. Li Quanqing was delighted and was about to go forward to check it out when he heard a gurgling sound. A string of bubbles floated up, swaying from the bottom of the water, and a emerald-colored stone as big as a sea bowl floated up, rising and falling with the waves. Just as he was wondering, a round and blunt turtle head suddenly popped out, and 2 black eyes as big as beans blinked, staring at him motionlessly. Motionless longevity turtle. I should be in the mud, not lying on the bottom of the sea. Maturity. 4%. Chapter 48 Body Refining Technique. Li Quanqing picked up the longevity turtle. Although it was born not long ago, its size is comparable to that of an ordinary sea turtle. It looks more like a land tortoise. Its emerald green shell is as crystal clear as jade, and its surface is covered with golden lines, which are clear and delicate. Its foreclaws are strong and powerful, covered with dark green scales. Its head is slightly round and blunt, similar to a python, and its black eyes are bright and energetic. No matter how you look at it, it gives people a lazy feeling. He put the longevity turtle on the reef and prepared to take out food to feed it. Snap! The copper-shelled crab next to it suddenly came forward and swung its claws to clamp the turtle shell, making a banging sound. Hiss! On the other side, the green water python was also watching the fun, coiling its slender snake body and spitting out its tongue, watching the fun without minding the trouble. The longevity turtle was still calm, retracting its head and limbs into the turtle shell, lying there motionless. Have these copper-clad crabs reached their rebellious stage? They will bite everything they see. Li Quanqing had no choice but to pick up the crab babies one by one and throw them into the water far away. Facing the food placed in front of it, the longevity turtle remained indifferent, with its eyes half closed and half open, as quiet as a stone. On the contrary, the green water pythons were sniffing the aroma of food, and were ready to move. Li Quanqing was going to feed the fish first, and come back to check later. He caught 8 green water pythons in his hands. These snake babies were more beautiful than each other. They felt cold to the touch, and felt very comfortable to coil. Ayo the green water python enjoyed the massage of its owner while lying in his arms and eating and drinking. It can be said that it has reached the peak of its snake life. When all the fish were fed, it was already night and the stars were shining. Li Quanqing looked at the reef. Not only did the food disappear, but even the longevity turtle was gone. He hurriedly searched and finally found this guy at the bottom of the water, lying in the mud at the bottom of the pond, motionless. As if it had noticed the prying eyes, the longevity turtle glanced at him through the cracks in its shell, and then continued to close its eyes to rest. What a weird monster. Li Quanqing shook his head, too lazy to care, and prepared to let it go. Anyway, it looks easy to raise. You can't let him raise a turtle to death, right? Harvest an adult big black carp. Reward for spiritual sands. Harvest an adult big black carp. Reward a low-grade talisman water arrow talisman. Harvest an adult big black carp. Reward a macro spiritual energy group. Li Quanqing was boating in the fish pond, constantly catching one black carp after another. His face was expressionless, and he looked cold like a killer who had been slaughtering fish for 10 years. Although they had experienced the ravages of insect plagues, fortunately, there were still 500 or 600 big black carps left, and they had all entered the mature stage. Harvest a big black carp in the key refining stage. Reward a water element cover experience group. Li Quanqing suddenly raised his eyebrows and opened a light group reward that he had never seen before. A big black carp has become a monster? The young man crushed the ball of light, and a series of experiences flooded into his mind. He understood them thoroughly, and then he pointed his finger. The water waves condensed into 5 layers of water element shields, layer by layer, wrapping the big black fish inside. The big black fish was brightly colored, and its body was several times larger. A trace of demonic energy flowed between its scales and armor, and it had indeed become a demon beast. It was already 70% similar to the green jade carp. It's worthy of being a second-class fish pond. The spiritual energy is abundant, and the big black fish can cultivate into a demon. Li Quanqing was very satisfied. He touched all the big black fish, and harvested 2 demons in total, all of which were experience balls. He looked at the 20 green jade carps again. Line up, let me touch them all. Are you being lazy again? More than 100 green jade carp cubs floated to the surface of the water, spitting bubbles. They had grown to the size of a palm, and scattered in a large area, looking very crowded. Sashimi green jade carp. Practice? What the hell? It's impossible in this life. I have delicious food every day, when I wake up. Why should I force myself to eat such a happy sashimi? Cultivation. Key refining level 1, 9.9%. Li Quanqing gritted his teeth. Very good. A seat in the class C fish pond. The boss is mighty. Green jade carp. The boss practices and I practice. The boss is my god. Cultivation. Key refining level 1, 35%. Not bad. Not bad. A promising talent. You passed the test. In the end, after careful selection, including Aoking, a total of 6 green jade carps were left, and they could continue to stay in the fish pond of Area B to practice until the middle stage of key refining. Moo. The green jade carps that failed the test stared with stupid and innocent dead fish eyes, not knowing what was about to happen. Their days of lying down and playing are coming to an end. Carrying the fish basket to the sea area of Area C, as soon as the formation was opened, several dark black loaches were seen shuttling and playing among the reefs. When the loach cubs saw the strangers breaking in, they dived into the water like frightened rabbits and disappeared. Is that a baby stone loach? Li Quanqing was delighted. He didn't expect that these guys would not say anything and actually give him a big surprise. After taking out the water repellent beads, Li Quanqing searched the entire pond bottom and finally harvested 49 baby stone loaches. Because the fish pond is empty and large, and there are no other competing creatures, each of them grows shiny, thick and long. He collected these baby loaches and prepared to raise them in a class B fish pond for easy feeding and management. The living environment suddenly became bad, and the green jade carps immediately protested, spitting water arrows fiercely and making a sound of papa. Resistance is useless. Whoever breaks through the second level of key refining first can return. Li Quanqing was not soft-hearted. He directly closed the formation and decided to feed them every 3 or 5 days. With spiritual energy nourishing them, they won't starve to death anyway, and it's even enough to support the cultivation of these jade carps. As time goes by, the newly harvested second grade fish pond is gradually transformed into a familiar appearance. The fastest growing one is the copper armored crab. The growth cycle of crab-like monsters is short, and with the various precious minerals and magic weapon fragments that are fleeced by the weapon haul, these spiritual crabs are fed to be big and strong, arrogant and domineering. The growth rate of the green water python is also not slow. Snakes are inherently yin. They follow the jade carps every day to swallow the moonlight, and they get a lot of benefits. The longevity turtle is the slowest and can only increase its maturity by 1% every month. It is speechless. 6 months later, deep in the weapon refining hall, Li Quanqing made seals with his hands, like a butterfly flying through flowers, and cast the last rune on the surface of the sword embryo in front of him. Clang! Exclamation mark. A green carp sword jumped out of the sea of fire, and the strong spiritual light kept flashing, and finally all disappeared, returning to its ancient simplicity. A medium-grade magic weapon. Junior brother's talent in refining equipment is really amazing. The only spectator, Li Quanqing, was amazed. He took out a top-grade magic weapon green scale shield, and handed it to the boy. It was prepared long ago. Li Quanqing put away the green scale shield, and the last shortcoming of the family competition was finally made up. I heard that senior brother also signed up for the competition. Yes, although I'm not good at fighting, I must compete in the refining competition. The Li family's family competition has many items. In addition to the most common fighting, there are also various small competitions such as the 100 Arts of Cultivation. This time, the Hall Master has invested heavily and applied to the family for a Tanghua pill as a reward for the champion of the refining competition. Li Quanqing smiled and said, if junior brother is not good at learning, don't blame senior brother for taking this pill. Li Quanqing was surprised. Tanghua pill can help the 6th level key training cultivators break through the late stage. It is precious and rare. Did the Hall Master prepare it specifically for him? Back to the fish pond, Li Quanqing held the green scale shield and looked at it carefully, trying to figure out the refining techniques contained in it. Only cultivators under the age of 30 are eligible to participate in the competition. He is very clear about the level of those weapon refiners, and only his senior brother Li Quanqing is his biggest enemy. Senior brother has long been a first-class medium-grade weapon refiner. Should he prepare to impact the top grade now? Li Quanqing touched his chin. If he wants to win the championship, the middle grade kingly sword is not enough. Only by refining a top grade magic weapon can he take the first place. It is really full of pressure. More than a month has passed, and there is only half a month left before the competition. The Qingyu Islands are in full swing. After dinner and tea, all the Li clan members are eagerly discussing this matter. The fish pond is still quiet. On a night as quiet as the past, a copper-shelled crab quietly entered the mature stage. Harvest a copper-shelled crab in the early stage of key refining, and reward the body refining technique glass jade bone body. Right square bracket. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Bronze Armor Talisman, Glazed Jade Bone Body. Li Quanqing blinked his eyes. He didn't expect that the body refining technique he had been thinking about would actually be revealed. He crushed the ball of light, and a body refining scripture appeared in his mind, as vast as the sea of smoke. Swallowing a large amount of precious jade ore to temper the glazed treasure body. No hard practice is required. It is extremely dependent on various jade resources, and is very expensive. Not bad. It is very suitable for a lazy dog like me to practice. Li Quanqing nodded after reading it, but his storage bag was about to dry up again. He carefully comprehended the scripture, and found that this body refining technique is divided into 3 levels in total. Copper bone body, jade bone body, and glazed body. The most advanced glazed bone can even resist the spells of the foundation building level without dying. Among the key refining level techniques, it is considered very good. Unfortunately, it was revealed too late, and I can't catch up with the family competition. Li Quanqing shook his head, and took out an iron ore to practice and try it out. Crack. Seeing the food, the copper-shelled crab that became a key refining monster suddenly became excited and kept waving its big claws. Li Quanqing handed the ore to it, and with a crisp sound, the crab's claws broke the iron ore into several pieces. The mouthparts of the copper-armored crab squirmed, and it was very excited and was about to swallow the ore into its stomach. A big hand suddenly fell from the sky and took away all the iron ore, leaving nothing for it. Copper-armored crab. Li Quanqing held the iron block the size of a sugar cube in his hand, a little hesitant. can this thing really be eaten? Finally, he closed his eyes and stuffed the ore into his mouth. For the first time in his life, he tried these strange foods. The magic power was running, and according to the practice method of Liu, he slowly polished the iron ore. Gulp. Gulp. Li Quanqing swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva involuntarily. The taste was strange, and he could clearly taste the iron smell. His tongue could feel that the ore in his mouth was slowly shrinking, and was finally completely absorbed by his body. It's so unpalatable. Li Quanqing made a bitter face, and spat out a mouthful of iron slag, which looked like chewed sugarcane residue. All the essence of Gengjin was swallowed, strengthening bones and tempering flesh and blood, leaving only useless dregs. I wonder if the taste of the gemstone lingai will taste better? Li Quanqing's thoughts diverged, and he took out another piece of iron ore and bit it hard with his teeth. What's wrong with being unpalatable? You can become stronger just by lying down. Those body refining monks who were polishing their bodies miserably were all crying with greed. Harvest a copper armored crab in the early stage of key refining, and reward a Gengjin Sword Art experience group. Harvest a copper armored crab in the early stage of key refining, and reward 5 top grade copper armor talismans. Copper armor talisman, a top grade talisman that can be transformed into bronze talisman armor to protect the whole body and block the attacks of cultivators in the late stage of key refining. The duration is 1 stick of incense. Before the family competition began, the spirit crabs finally matured one after another. A total of 30 bronze armor talismans that looked like bronze tokens were opened, and the rest were all experience light balls. He directly cultivated the Gengjin Sword Art to a superb state. Kai! Exclamation mark. Li Quanqing flicked his finger, and the kingly sword flew in all directions, scattering dozens or hundreds of Gengjin sword ki, like a stream of light all over the sky. Clang! Exclamation mark. In the end, all the sword ki suddenly merged into one place, turning into a substantial golden sword, which was held in the hands of the young man, and the edge was extremely restrained. If those guys who claim to be sword cultivators saw it, I'm afraid their Taoism would be broken. Li Quanqing sat cross-legged on the lotus platform, holding a green and a golden sword, with powerful magic power surging in his meridians, and he felt full of confidence. The family competition is a grand event held once every 10 years by the Qingyu Li family. All the young clansmen are eager to try, especially those who are not from a good family, eager to stand out in the competition. There are such examples in every session. Because of their excellent performance, they are favored by the elders and finally soar into the sky. Yulangton. Along the shore, a series of arenas were set up, carved with lotus and fish patterns, surrounded by rippling water, and protected by the spiritual light of the formation, which was very solid. In this combat environment, the water essence is rich, and the water spirit root cultivators are extremely advantageous. But there is no way. The disputes and fights in the East China Sea's Yuxin world mostly take place on the sea, which is an indisputable fact. Li Quanqing came to the area where the disciples of the weapon hall gathered. Everyone wore a uniform robe with flame fish and dragon patterns. There were many people and the momentum seemed very strong. The only one who could compare with them was the small circle of the direct descendants of the foundation building, which had much fewer people than them. Junior sister also signed up for the martial arts competition. After not seeing each other for more than half a year, Li Quanqing actually broke through again and now has the 5th level of key refining. I'm not like my senior brother, who is naturally valued by nobles because of his talent. For me, many things can only be obtained by trying my best. Li Quanqing stroked the hair scattered by her ears, stared at the pool with a faint smile. Li Quanqing. Junior sister, I just want to ask you a question. Why are you talking so much? Seeing the boy's dull eyes, Li Quanqing chuckled. It's not your fault that you are a genius. It's because we are too mediocre. She handed over a file. Take a look. This is the list of martial arts compiled by the disciples of the weapon hall. Li Quanqing, King for the Island Branch, middle grade water spiritual roots, 6th level key refining cultivation. Li Quanmo, Qingyu Island Branch, middle grade fire spiritual roots, 6th level key refining cultivation, body cultivator. Li Quanqing, Qingpan Island Branch, middle grade water spiritual roots, 6th level key refining cultivation. Li Quanqing, Kingdo Island Branch, middle grade gold spiritual roots, 5th level key refining cultivation, body cultivator. Li Quanqing, King Island Branch, low grade water spiritual roots, 5th level key refining cultivation, majoring in ice magic. Li Quanqing flipped through it roughly and found that there were only 3 young cultivators at the 6th level of key refining. There are many people at the 5th level of key refining, as many as 13, and the competition for the top 10 places is very fierce. Why is Li Quanqing not on it? He didn't participate in this competition, maybe to build momentum for his fiancé. After all, if the winner of the competition is from a branch lineage, this lineage can be promoted to the main lineage of Qingdao Island. Li Quanqing breathed a sigh of relief. Without the pressure of this 7th level key refining cultivator, his confidence increased instantly. The process of the family competition is to first conduct a martial arts competition, to select the top 10. Then there will be a competition of hundreds of arts of cultivation, leaving time for the clan members who have experience to fight to rest. Finally, the first person in the martial arts competition will be decided and honored. The selection standard is family cultivators under 30, and in the end there were nearly 500 people who signed up, which is really a lot. The atmosphere of the internal competition in the family is still relatively relaxed and harmonious. The first day allowed the clan members to get familiar with the environment, and there was only one martial arts competition in the afternoon. Li Quanqing drew a lot, and the 22nd pair was on the number 9 ring. Fortunately, he didn't have to face off against his familiar friends, so he came to the ring early to wait. When it was his turn, a very shy girl jumped onto the ring, and her cultivation was only at the 3rd level of key refining. Hello. Li Quanqing greeted politely, with handsome features and a green robe, looking very elegant. Hello. The girl blushed a little, and then her eyes became firm, and she took out a tattered kingly sword. Although the tribe member in front of her was very beautiful, she had promised her grandfather that she would break into the top 50. Hey, watch me kill the enemy with my swordsmanship. The girl used her magic power, shouted delicately, and controlled the flying sword to fly up slowly and accelerated, and finally smashed into the enemy. This is not a swordsmanship at all. It should be called meteorite falling from the sky. Li Quanqing was speechless, and he was too lazy to take the sword behind him. He waved his sleeves and sent out a series of Gengjin sword beams. Clang. The sword energy was crisscrossed, like a large interwoven net covering the sky, and there was no way to retreat. Countless golden sword ki rushed forward, and the green carp sword was directly suppressed, like a piece of scrap metal falling on the stage. Its spiritual light dimmed. How is this possible? The girl exclaimed in disbelief. Her magic power bloomed, and she wanted to control the flying sword to fight back. Unfortunately, the maximum range of this green carp sword can do is to bounce a few times on the ground. It was like a big black carp out of the sea, with an inexplicable sense of helplessness. A sword key turned into a small golden sword. The edge was surging and stopped at the girl's throat, frightening her so much that her whole body stiffened. You lose. Jump down by yourself. Chapter 50 Li Quanqing. The girl held back tears and jumped off the ring holding the kingly sword, looking aggrieved. Her pretty face was flushed from crying. Li Quanqing was in a good mood, and he shattered all the sword energy in the sky. After the fight, we went home. This kid is so strong in swordsmanship. Is he a true genius? Li Quanqing had been paying attention to this side and was very puzzled. He felt that he was a talented person in the Li family, but he was shocked by a junior. However, except for the 3rd elder, no other family leaders noticed Li Quanqing. There were too many monks in the competition, and it was dazzling. At night, Li Quanqing sat on the reef, bathing in the moonlight, and counted the talismans he currently had. Copper armor talismans, diamond talismans, ice arrow talismans, golden light shield talismans, falling stone talismans, water arrow talismans. There were too many of them, and they needed to be sorted out in different categories to avoid being busy in the battle. Hiss, the sea water surged, and a green water python swam up from the water, coiled around the reef, and intimately spit out its snake tongue. The little watery fellow has now grown up completely, and has become a giant of 6 or 7 meters in size. Under the moonlight, the blue diamond-shaped scales are like a layer of silver armor, which is indescribably mysterious and powerful. Hissed the green water python, stretched out its bowl-sized head and rubbed against Li Quanqing like a child asking for cakes from an adult. Damn it, he actually saw the 4 words handsome on the face of a snake. Curious by nature, green water python, master, master, I want to eat that delicious water again. I feel like I'm about to advance. Maturity. 98%. Not only the spiritual python, but the rest of the green water pythons also raised their heads from the water, looking at him with emerald green pupils. From a distance, I thought it was a big monster with 8 heads hunting under the moon. The seawater was sparkling, and the scene was beautiful and ferocious. I only have this little wealth, and you will eat it all. Looking at the eager python cubs, Li Quanqing took out the Taiyin soul nourishing water with pain, and fed a few drops to each snake. He found that this spiritual liquid had a fatal attraction to many monsters, especially those with smart heads. The higher the wisdom, the more eager they were for the favor of the Taiyin and the bright moon. In many legends about the monsters, they were born to worship the Taiyin and regarded it as the source of life. Hissed the green water pythons were all very happy to get the spiritual liquid. Some of them kept smacking their lips, looking like they were savoring it. Splash. The waves splashed, and the first green water python suddenly dived into the water, and then came out again, opening its mouth, and spitting out a few lively big black fish. Snap. Snap. The big blue fish blew bubbles, its body tumbled, and its tail kept slapping the ground. It was pitiful, weak and helpless. These guys can be said to be the most miserable guys in the fish pond. Even the stone loach can bully them. The other green water pythons followed suit and went to hunt big bluefish and offer them as food to the leader. Li Quanqing accepted it calmly and turned around to release the fish back into the fish pond. It's not a big deal to keep these green water pythons in captivity. Domestic cats can catch mice, not to mention monsters that naturally worship the strong. Can I take them hunting in the future, or just build a hunting ground artificially? Li Quanqing thought to himself. Selling mature big bluefish to the family is selling, and feeding them to pets will have the same result, and it can also hone their wildness. It's just to make the fish suffer more. The family competition continued, and Li Quanqing won every game easily. In order to leave enough rest time for the tribe members, everyone only needs to play 1 game a day. Strong-seeded players can live a leisurely and comfortable life. Li Quanqing's strong fighting ability naturally attracted the attention of many elders, but they were all beaten away by the 3rd elder. He entered the top 16 smoothly and finally drew an opponent he liked. Li Quanmo, a 6th level key refining body refining cultivator. Although he was born in the direct lineage, his family was not rich, and there was no difference from the side branches. Later, he worked hard and was valued by Li Quanli, and then he gradually emerged and became the family genius second only to Li Quanqing. Strictly speaking, both of them can be regarded as half students of the 3rd elder, but they didn't expect to meet on the ring. That night, facing tomorrow's battle, Li Quanqing is still staying at home in the fish pond without any panic and pressure 16-8. Even if he fails, he can compete for the 2 places to revive. The top 10 is a sure thing, and the blue sea tide rising power is already waving at him. A green water python tried to get close again, raised its upper body, and swam out of the water. Wisps of white light bloomed from between its scales, and finally turned into a ball of light. Harvest a green water python in the early stage of key refining, and reward a top grade magic weapon green water shuttle. Remaining pieces? Li Quanqing. In a trance, he thought he was playing a card drawing game. System dog, you have changed. Getting worse and worse. Green water shuttle, a top grade water escaping magic weapon that can dive into the deep sea and merge with the waves. It is nowhere to be found in the vast blue sea. Li Quanqing took out the magic weapon. It looked like a blue jade surfboard with pointed ends and wave-like patterns engraved on the surface, extending to the magic weapon. What kind of magic weapon is this? Can I surf on it? Li Quanqing was a little confused. He looked at it carefully. With the eyes of a weapon refiner, this should be a part of some kind of mosaic assembly magic weapon. The final product should be a fully enclosed spiritual boat in the shape of a shuttle boat, which can freely travel in the sea. Why do I feel like I'm lying in a coffin? Li Quanqing's face turned black. Although it was just a fragment, the surfboard in his hand was still amazing. In terms of the aura and momentum alone, it was comparable to a top-grade magic weapon. Li Quanqing took a few glances and put it away. He didn't use his magic power to refine it. There will be a big battle tomorrow, so it's better to conserve his energy. The next day, everyone was paying attention. Li Quanqing jumped onto the stage and met Li Quanmo, a genius disciple of the direct lineage. This guy looked very ordinary, not handsome or tall, and looked very silent. He wore black clothes and had no decorations on his body. He was ordinary. "Hello, brother." Li Quanqing greeted politely. They were all from the faction of the Third Elder, and the man in front of him was several years older than him. Li Quanmo was stunned, as if he hadn't communicated with anyone for a long time, and nodded silently. "I will show mercy. Xiang Xiang." He stretched out his fists, and suddenly fiery red lines appeared on the surface of his skin, like a blazing flame, and a high temperature was released. Li Quanmo's whole body swelled up, as if carved from red jade, tall and sturdy, like a diamond subduing demons. Fire jade diamond body. This guy seems very strong. Li Quanqing was ready, and in front of everyone, he took out a stack of talismans with a solemn face. Bronze armor talisman, open. Amidst the buzzing sound, a tall bronze armor talisman appeared out of thin air, made up of thousands of talisman scales, with a cold metallic luster, covering from head to toe. Golden light shield talisman, open. Li Quanqing always played it safe, and tore open 5 talismans in a row. 5 layers of golden rays of light were plated on the surface of the bronze armor. The color was so bright that it blinded people's eyes. Falling stone talisman, open. More than a dozen large stones rumbled, as big as millstones, hanging above their heads and turning non-stop, ready to fall at any time. In a trance, I thought it was a golden armored god who came down from the sky, punishing the gods, and sending down meteorites to destroy the world. Li Quanqing was wearing armor, with a diamond talisman in his left hand and an ice arrow talisman in his right hand. Thousands of water arrow talismans in his storage bag were ready to go. He had made all the preparations. "It's alright, please give me some advice, brother." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.